Chapter 1790. Only nascent soul cultivators above the 9th grade were valued by the Beidou planet region. Even though there were many sects and families in the entire Beidou planet and there were countless cultivators, sacred grade nascent soul cultivators were extremely rare. Cultivators like Han Ming who were ranked on the Star River roll and had a chance to inherit the power of a peerless divine sect. Not to mention the deity grade and divine grade ones. There was only one deity-grade nascent soul cultivator in the entire Beidou planet region, among the 7 stars and thousands of planets with life, 200,000 years ago. He was taken away by a supreme grand cultivator of the central galaxy and cultivated in an immortal sacred ground, where he had a chance to become a void-returned supreme saint or even a Tao reunion perfected immortal. As for a divine-grade nascent soul cultivator, there had never been one in the history of the Beidou planet region. Not even the central galaxy had a record of one. Rumor had it that a divine-grade nascent soul cultivator had a high chance of reaching the void return, Tao reunion and even tribulation to become a deity. That was the true dragon of the 9 realms. In the eyes of Qin Pu and the others, the solar system was like a fallen noble family that had lost its glory. Compared to the Big Dipper constellation, which was as vast as a river, or the central galaxy, which was as vast as an ocean, this was just a small pond or a small sewer. If it weren't for the recovery of spirit chi and the ancient treasures might have been exposed, they wouldn't have even looked at it. But now, in this small pond and small sewer, there was a real dragon bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws. Even if it was just a cub, how could they not be shocked? He has the spirit chi of planet destruction and he might have the inheritance of the ancient heavenly courts in the ruins of deity. Let's capture him together and interrogate him about the cultivation arts of this nascent soul cultivator. But I don't think it's a real divine-grade nascent soul cultivator. Furong Fairy was tempted and her eyes became greedy. Right. Even if he's really a divine-grade nascent soul cultivator, he's still weak. We can definitely take him down together. Fu Songhai was full of killing intent. He's evil and the sword in his hand is much more powerful than a sacred weapon. Don't show any mercy, or he'll turn the tables. Furong Fairy also looked serious. She had apparently been through thousands of battles and knew that a lion would do its best to catch a rabbit. Although Han Ming, Qin Yu, and Gui Yufan are a little reckless in their actions, they've run into a great opportunity this time. If it is really a divine-grade nascent soul stage cultivator, we can devour it as food. I'm afraid that we will be able to enter the great saint stage directly. Old man Qing Huang said sinisterly. As soon as his voice fell, he brazenly attacked, his giant axe chopping down at Jiang Tian. Suddenly, the mountain-like amount of laws condensed into a giant axe phantom. The terrifying laws could tear everything apart. The entire space was like a piece of paper, completely collapsing. Clang! Fu Songhai raised his red wine gourd again. Suddenly, a terrifying devouring power swept towards Jiang Tian, trying to suck Jiang Tian into it. The devouring gourd was a saint weapon in the first place. He had even absorbed a small planet into it and refined it into an offensive Dharma treasure. Go! Furong Fairy, the old saintess of the Banishing Immortals Hall, also showed no mercy. She waved her hand and a saint weapon called the Moon Shroud appeared in her hand, whipping it towards Jiang Tian. Starlight spread out from it, as if it were formed by a galaxy, entangling Jiang Tian. In the end, Qin Pu made a move as well. He withdrew a withered branch that was coiled up like a dragon, and he swung it at Jiang Tian. Instantly, numerous laws that were like rivers of stars poured down, and they were like raging waves beating against the shore as they suppressed Jiang Tian. At that moment, the 4 demi-saints attacked Jiang Tian together. They were serious and didn't show any mercy. Moreover, all of them were using saint weapons, which had the power to destroy heaven and earth, increasing the effect of their attacks by 10 times. The galaxy trembled violently under their attacks. Even Earth before the recovery of spirit chi would have collapsed if it had been hit by such an attack. However, Jiang Tian's face was extremely indifferent. Rise! His divine body, divine laws, and the power of his divine soul poured into the heaven-severing sword like a river. At that moment, the sword, which used to be simple and dull, also let out an extremely bright and dazzling light, as if there were many suns in the sky, extremely dazzling. The next moment, Jiang Tian picked up the sword as if it was extremely simple and slashed out. Sky Splitter. The sword was filled with the chaotic laws that were like the Big Bang that created the universe, but it used the Sky Splitter of the Kunpeng divine law, which had been merged into sword will and sword energy. At this moment, the entire starry sea was forcefully split apart by Jiang Tian's sword. Colorful chaotic air currents and bright chaotic divine laws turned into a chaotic sword aura that was 10,000 feet long. It was like a sword in the hands of an ancient god, which could tear the sky and cut the galaxy. Arg! The shadow of Elder Qing Huang's giant axe couldn't withstand the sword energy of the Sky Splitter and exploded inch by inch at that moment. The endless, vast, and surging pure nomological laws began to collapse in large patches, like a hemp rope that had turned into a tangled mess, and was utterly defeated. In the end, the chaotic laws flew into the sky like a dragon and entangled the giant axe, breaking the inferior grade sacred weapon. Elder Qing Huang was even pushed back a few hundred miles. His vast precepts were crushed, and he suffered a backlash. His vitality was greatly damaged. His 50,000 years of cultivation was destroyed by Jiang Tian's sword, and he fell directly from the half-saint realm to the peak of the divine transformation realm. How is that possible? How can the power of his sword be so strong? Elder Qing Huang was flustered and exasperated. He glared at Jiang Tian, his heart was filled with shock and resentment. He shouted loudly, his magical weapon's grade is too high, he cannot use it too many times. Hurry up and kill him while he's weak. Whoosh! 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 Fu Canghai's expression was as cold as iron. He kept chanting spells and stepping forward. The power of the law of devouring from the red wine gourd arrived. This sacred weapon contained the law of devouring, which was extremely terrifying. It could instantly tear apart a soul formation grand cultivator, turning him into a rain of blood and clouds. It could even devour a god and his divine soul quickly. However, the myriad origin cauldron's power had already been pushed to the limit by Jiang Tian. Strands of primal chaos law hung down like silk, forming a barrier that enveloped Jiang Tian. The wine gourd's law of devouring only caused the barrier to ripple slightly, but it did not break through. As for Qin Pu's withered branch and Fairy Furong's moon ribbon, after their continuous attacks, they were only able to force Jiang Tian and the giant cauldron back by around 1 mile. In the vast space battlefield, this distance was practically negligible. At that moment, the countless cultivators on the space battlefield were all shocked and couldn't believe it. They all widened their eyes and thought they had seen it wrong, as if they had fallen into a nightmare. Jiang Tian's attack had destroyed Elder Qing Huang's law attack, which made his power drop by a level. And yet, Jiang Tian didn't seem to be injured at all when the 3 half-saints attacked Jiang Tian with all their might. That was terrifying. It meant that the 4 half-saints couldn't do anything to Jiang Tian in a short time, but Jiang Tian could injure or even kill them. Jiang Tian stood proudly in the sky, surrounded by the chaotic laws. The bright chaotic airflow was like a galaxy, as if a saint had arrived. He's too powerful. He's too powerful. I thought Han Ming, Gui Yufan and Qin Yu were the most powerful cultivators below the half-saints. But now, it seems that Kang Te-Chu is the real half-saint. No, he's invincible below the saints. I heard that his lifespan is only 30 to 40 Earth years. How did he do that? At that moment, Han Sheng, Luo Chen, and the other elites from other planets sighed. That's terrifying. He's only a nascent soul cultivator, but he's able to fight against a half-saint. What kind of nascent soul cultivator is he? How can there be such a powerful nascent soul cultivator in the universe? Many soul formation grand cultivators exclaimed. The next second, Jiang Tian moved. The 9 Dharma laws merged into one and turned into the chaotic laws, which then turned into the Kunpeng laws. That was equivalent to 9 times the original Kunpeng divine law. He turned into an extremely handsome Kunpeng shadow with giant wings, feathers like peerless heavenly blades and claws like heavenly hooks. The next second, he flashed across the sky and turned into a beam of light, disappearing on the spot. At that moment, the four half-saints looked extremely pale. They looked as if they had seen a ferocious beast from the ancient universe. What was the most terrifying? All the known powers, no matter how powerful they were, weren't the most terrifying. The most terrifying thing was the unknown power, the power that couldn't be controlled or even understood. At that moment, Jiang Tian gave them the feeling that they couldn't control, understand, or defeat him. Chapter 1791. Everyone felt as if Jiang Tian had disappeared into thin air. There were no energy waves, no space waves and no traces. He just disappeared into thin air. In fact, Jiang Tian was still splitting the space, but he was so fast that the space immediately closed after passing through. The time was so short that the space waves couldn't be detected at all. The next moment, Jiang Tian appeared in front of Qin Pu, who was a few hundred miles away at an unbelievable angle. He had already turned into a human and slashed down without saying anything. Yin-yang splitting. The sword light twisted and turned like the dividing line of the yin and yang fish in the Taiji diagram. It was very smooth and beautiful, looking especially harmonious and beautiful. However, its speed was extremely fast, and its killing intent was peerless. It was extremely sharp and unstoppable. It was as if the 9 heavens and 10 earths, as well as all living things, would be slashed apart with a single slash. What? At this moment, Qin Pu's eyes were wide open. His face was filled with astonishment. The astonishment and fear in his eyes were extremely intense. He had never thought that Jiang Tian would appear there and be so fast. He couldn't even raise the withered branch-like sacred weapon in his hand in time, so he could only summon all kinds of Dharma laws to resist. Crack! As the sword slashed, the space was divided into light and darkness. Even the Dharma laws were split under his control. A terrifying space crack went from top to bottom and stretched for 1,000 miles. That sword mark started from the tip of Jiang Tian's sword and cut Qin Pu's body, divine treasures and deities, then meandered into the endless depths of the void. Many nascent soul stage cultivators and divinity transformation stage cultivators nearby were cut into 2 halves before they could even scream. The other 3 demi-saints were also affected by the yin-yang separation sword radiance. All of them were injured and looked horrified. A few sacred weapons even had their Dao inscriptions destroyed. They were severely damaged and their light dimmed. The weapon spirits wailed in fear and even tried to escape from their masters. He had killed a half-saint with 1 slash. A blood line appeared on Qin Pu's forehead. His eyes trembled and his deities roared. His wounds wriggled quickly and all kinds of Dharma laws attacked and destroyed the chaotic Dharma laws that Jiang Tian had slashed out. They healed and cracked at times. Half of the gods who had entrusted themselves to the void continued to absorb and devour the power of laws from the heavens and the earth, trying to forcefully repair their physical bodies. However, in the end, the primal chaos divine law drilled into the ground like a poisonous dragon. It affected, heavily injured, and strangled his god. He couldn't hold on any longer and was directly split into 2. Only his godly soul was left. He turned pale with fright and ran outside. However, he immediately let out a miserable howl and was strangled by the aftershock of the sword light. Fuck, is this guy still human? At this moment, the eyes of countless cultivators nearly popped out of their sockets. Jiang Tian's sword attack was too terrifying. It had killed Qin Pu and seriously injured the other 3 semi-sage experts. Retreat quickly. Without another word, Fairy Furong immediately waved her sleeve and retreated 500 kilometers away like a graceful swan. This brat actually killed Brother Qin. Holding the big red wine gourd, Fu Sanghai's eyes bulged. He wanted to use the world he had refined inside the gourd to crush Jiang Tian. However, as she reminded him, he hurriedly retreated. Originally, there were several real stars hidden in his gourd, which were the power of several worlds. He had just used the devouring power, but he hadn't used the more terrifying crushing power of the world of stars. He thought that once he used it, there was at least a 50% chance that he would crush Jiang Tian. However, what if? If he couldn't kill Jiang Tian, he and Jiang Tian were about the same strength. It was very likely that he would be killed by Jiang Tian's sword. Therefore, after Fairy Furong's reminder, this brat is too terrifying. As for Elder Qing Huang, because his cultivation had fallen, he was most afraid of Jiang Tian. However, he had already retreated at the first moment. His face was pale with fright, and his majestic body was trembling slightly. Qin Pu was a quasi-sage. The Taishang elders of the most powerful holy clans were usually gods who resided in the void. They could continuously absorb the power of precepts from the heavens and earth, turning them into attacks or defenses, or even repairing their bodies. They were terrifying existences that were almost immortal and indestructible. However, they were still killed by Jiang Tian's sword. This brat's sword and stone cauldron are too powerful. Deity material. What kind of luck did he have to get this treasure? Elder Qing Huang stared at the sword in Jiang Tian's hand. His eyes were bloodshot with jealousy. The power of this kind of deity weapon was too terrifying. Compared to it, the sacred weapons in their hands were like fire sticks. They were extremely useless. No matter what. We can't take him down. Fairy Furong's face turned pale as she whispered. The power that Jiang Tian had unleashed was far beyond their imagination. They had traveled across the Star Ocean and the Milky Way. They had seen all kinds of talents, but they had never seen someone as powerful as Jiang Tian. Of course, half of the credit for this was due to Jiang Tian's stone cauldron and absolute heaven sword. However, Jiang Tian's powerful divine body that was almost indestructible and as fast as a rock was enough to make them feel terrified. Although they had all survived, they were all injured and stained with blood. Elder Qing Huang's cultivation had also fallen. They were no longer as strong as when they first arrived. How long could they resist Jiang Tian? Thinking of this, they just wanted to run away. Divine princes and cultivators of the Beidou sect who are attacking Earth, retreat. Thinking of this, Fu Songhai shouted even louder, using his divine sense to transmit his voice. The core of the primordial tree. After Jiang Tian killed Qin Pu, he directly snatched the withered branch away. He could not help rejoicing. He could give this treasure to Huang Linger. But it was strange that he hadn't seen this infatuated girl since he returned. Where did she go? She didn't have to be so focused even if she was cultivating. Fellow Taoist Grand Primordium, we failed to recognize the true dragon and offended you. If you have time to come to the Beidou sect in the future, I'll be sure to welcome you as a distinguished guest. Fairy Furong's fairy-like appearance was moving and captivating. Her charming voice was soft and her smile was like a flower. She no longer dared to oppose Jiang Tian and wanted to dissolve Jiang Tian's killing intent. She didn't feel safe at all, even though she had the sacred weapon, the Shuiyue ribbon, in her hand. She believed that she would die under her slash. Even a sacred weapon wouldn't be able to resist it. Elder Qing Huang was even more frightened. After all, his cultivation level had fallen. Without saying a word, he hurriedly flew deep into the universe with the sky-opening axe, like a stray dog. It's too late. According to your rules, you should kneel in front of Earth for 10,000 years and beg for forgiveness. Running away like that, it's very insincere of you to admit your mistake. Jiang Tian chuckled. Boom. As he spoke, he raised his hand and pointed with a finger. The sea-calming ice god Law spanned across the sky and froze Elder Qing Huang in place like a rainbow of ice crystals. Then, Jiang Tian's figure flashed, and he slapped down with his palm. The space within 100 miles was compressed into negative space, turning Elder Qing Huang into dust. Only the giant axe was left as it shot into the depths of the universe. Immediately after, Jiang Tian activated the absolute heaven sword again without saying a word. He moved with the sword, and the sword drew a huge arc and slashed out. Open the chaos. The divine law of the chaos was slashed with the sword intent and sword aura. It was as if an ancient god was wielding a giant axe, splitting the chaos and creating a world. Its power was extremely terrifying. In a blink, the entire space battlefield was turned upside down, the world collapsed and the universe battleships and even the space fortresses were turned into powder under the slash. No! Fu Songhai and Fairy Furong yelled. But it was useless. The two of them were split in half by Jiang Tian's slash. At that moment, the entire star ocean was in silence. Countless cultivators from other planets trembled and sat on the ground in fear. Chapter 1792. Not only did the attack kill the two demi-saints, but it also carried the chaos law and the sword aura. The impact was so wide that it cut through countless battleships, two space fortresses and even a space city behind the two demi-saints. The space city was like a fallen planet, and an earth-shattering explosion occurred. In the sky, energy storms surged and broken limbs were everywhere. Blood dyed the sky red and the wreckage of the battleships with a metallic luster enveloped the battlefield. That huge sword mark was like a black rainbow piercing through the sun. It extended for thousands of miles in front of Jiang Tian. It was like a black abyss that cut through heaven and earth. How is that possible? All the spectating cultivators, whether it was the cultivators from outer space on the battlefield, the natives of Earth, or the reinforcements who had rushed over from the depths of the dimensional world, all witnessed this terrifying scene in a daze, as if they were watching a fantasy story. More than half of the Alliance army, which had come with a ferocious aura and seemed capable of engulfing the entire solar system, had been slain by Jiang Tian with a single slash of his sword. What was even more terrifying was that the four demi-saints, who were like true immortals standing high above the world, had been killed by Jiang Tian. It should be noted that they were the trump cards of the most powerful holy clans. Their strength was unparalleled in the Star Sea, and they were all top bosses in the Big Dipper starfield. And yet, they still couldn't stop Jiang Tian's slash even after activating their sacred weapons. Who the hell is he? How can he be so sharp? The patriarch of the Saint-Era sword sect, Luo Chen, mumbled to himself with fear in his eyes. How can this be? A divine transformation realm elder trembled and said softly. Not only him, all the cultivators from other planets didn't want to believe it. The four half-saints were all terrifying figures who stood above the Beta planet region and dominated the star ocean. Other than the sect masters and the reckless ancestral masters, there weren't many people in the Beta planet who could suppress them. And yet, they still couldn't withstand the power of Jiang Tian's sword. Is he really a banished immortal from the nine heavens? Or is he, the reincarnation of an immortal? Even the divine princes who had been brought by Qin Pu and the other quasi-saints to attack Earth were dumbfounded. They even forgot to fight with Xiao Xueqing and the others and shouted with trembling voices. Other than that, there was really no other explanation for Jiang Tian's strength. Jiang Tian was in the middle stage of the nascent soul stage, but his body, nascent soul stage, divine powers, and Dharma laws were all extremely tough. The laws he grasped were so vast, powerful, and condensed that it even surpassed the half-saint realm, and its grade was unimaginably high. The Dharma laws those half-saints controlled were already the most powerful in the star ocean. They were much more powerful than normal sacred grade soul formation cultivators and had even mastered part of the Grand Tao. And yet, they were vulnerable in front of Jiang Tian. All kinds of divine abilities were powerless in front of Jiang Tian, just like a weak baby. This man is definitely not from Earth. He's not even from the Milky Way. He's either from the nine heavens deity realm or from the outer region. That's the real outer region, the outer region of the entire Milky Way. That's the central galaxy, a divine prince said. The central galaxy? Everyone around was terrified. That was a legendary place, the home of legends, the center of the entire universe, where countless elites gathered. Soul formation grand cultivators and elites who could be called ancestral patriarchs in the Milky Way weren't everywhere in the central galaxy, but they weren't rare either. There were also countless sacred grounds and large sects that had been established for millions or even tens of millions of years. Could Jiang Tian have come from such a place? For the Big Dipper galaxy at the edge of the universe, or even the entire vast Milky Way, the central galaxy was almost like the legendary realm of deities. Many people had never left the Milky Way in their entire lives. Take the Big Dipper planet region for example. In the past 200,000 years, there had only been one deity-grade nascent soul cultivator, who had been taken away by a giant from the central galaxy. Billions of other cultivators might not even have the chance to enter the central galaxy, even if they became saints. Most of the supreme saints who had entered the central galaxy in history had sneaked in. In the universe, the central galaxy was as different from the abandoned planet region and the wasteland planet region, as the international metropolises of developed countries on Earth and the primitive tribes in Africa. Run! At this moment, many soul formation elites and ancestral disciples of the divine sects who were attacking Earth were terrified and wanted to retreat at the same time. Han Sheng, who was watching from the outer region, was even faster. He immediately drove a space fortress and flew deep into the sky without saying a word. After Jiang Tian killed 4 half-saints in a row with a sword, Han Sheng knew that the Big Dipper planet region had no hope of attacking Earth. It wasn't that nobody in the Big Dipper planet region was a match for Jiang Tian, but even if there were, nobody would take the risk easily. As for revenge, that didn't exist in the eyes of the disciples of the large sects in the Star Ocean. Even if they reached the nascent soul level, it would be easy for them to steal someone else's body, change their soul or rebuild their body, not to mention the soul formation level. So, real cultivators didn't care much about blood ties. Especially when they weren't families, but Sections. A sect was not an organization based on bloodline, but a collection of interests. The rules of conduct would also be based on interests. It was rational to the extreme, but also cold to the extreme. Only the current sect master of the Beihan sect was his and Han Ming's ancestor, but the other elders weren't. The ancestral disciples like Gui Yufan had no blood ties with the sect master. So, the senior members of the divine sects would consider interests in the future. There was a great opportunity for immortals on Earth, but the death of Han Sheng, the 4 Zongzis, and the 4 quasi-saints made people wonder if this opportunity still existed, and if it had been completely taken over by Jiang Taichu. Would it make sense to come to Earth again? Would they risk the death of a half-saint to invade Earth and face Kang Taichu directly for an imaginary opportunity? Why would those half-saints do that? Unless they had more powerful helpers, such as real Void Return Saints, they would have 100% confidence in winning. After he left, Luo Chen and the other ancestral disciples also ran away. So, this time, the coalition army of the divine sects led by Han Ming ran away without any illusions. They were full of despair and fear, so they ran as fast as they could. Clatter, clatter, clatter. But Jiang Tian didn't care about them. However, his gaze was like a sword as he stepped into the void and rushed toward Earth with his sword in hand. He's here. Hurry up. Change the trajectory of the fleet and go straight into the Star Ocean. The geniuses on the Starry River ranking were all scared out of their wits when they saw what had happened. My friend, why do you have to kill all of us? We're just following orders. There's nothing we can do. Yes, in fact, we abhor the invasion of Earth by Qin Pu and the other old men. We have tried to persuade them more than once, but the words of a lowly man carry little weight. After receiving Qin Pu's order, we were just idling around. As you can see, we didn't hurt your wife. As long as you spare us, we're willing to form a divine soul contract with you. We'll never do it again and we'll help you protect Earth. There were even some people who were trying to get on Jiang Tian's good side, trying to break down Jiang Tian's killing intent. However, their fleeing speed was not slow. They were elites on the Star River Roll thousands of years ago and were experienced soul formation cultivators. They might not be much more powerful than Han Ming and the others, but they were at least on par with them. However, there was still a big gap between them and Qin Pu and the other half-saints. Now that even a half-saint had died, they were no match for him. They also had tens of thousands of golden core cultivators, nascent soul cultivators and soul formation cultivators with them, and they were on many space battleships and fortresses. However, The aftermath of Jiang Tian's sword had even destroyed a planetary city. How could they resist the power of Jiang Tian's sword? But Jiang Tian didn't say anything. He just pushed the Kunpeng to the extreme and turned into a ray of light, shooting into the fleet of battleships that were invading Earth. Jiang Tian's sword aura was extremely sharp. Layers of space were easily pierced through like fragile paper in front of his incredibly powerful initial success deity body. Tens of thousands of kilometers were crossed by Jiang Tian with one step. "Qing'er, get out of the way." As Jiang Tian shouted, he had already arrived at the fleet of battleships. Chapter 1793. Everyone, back off. Zhao Xueqing's clone was thrilled. She smiled and said, "Honey, it's your turn." Boom. Jiang Tianhe bumped into 700 to 800 miles long warships, which looked like mountain-shaped dragons, were crushed right on the spot. The golden core cultivators on the battleships were like tofu under a hammer. Thousands of them couldn't withstand Jiang Tian's peerless power and exploded in the air. They were turned into blood mist along with the battleships. Even the nascent soul cultivators and soul formation cultivators couldn't withstand it. They were severely injured and screamed. But that wasn't the end. Jiang Tian slashed with the heavenly obliterating sword in his hand. The sword swept across the sky and slashed dozens of nascent soul cultivators and soul formation cultivators. The Dharma treasures on those nascent soul cultivators and soul formation cultivators were like paper. They couldn't even stop Jiang Tian for a second before they were split in half. Boom! The Big Dipper fleet, which had crossed layers of voids in high spirits and intended to conquer the Earth with ease, suffered heavy losses after just one collision. More than 100 nascent soul cultivators and soul formation cultivators died, including 2 former elites on the galaxy roll. Run! At that moment, screams and screams resounded in the sky. There were countless flags, nascent soul cultivators and soul formation cultivators. How arrogant! And yet, after Jiang Tian attacked, they were scared out of their wits. They bumped into each other and ran towards the deep space crazily. Clang! 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 Jiang Tian attacked mercilessly. He swept the sky with his sword and punched with his fist. Wherever he went, the air exploded and Dharma laws were shattered. The air in 100-mile radius around him had turned into an ocean of light and chaotic air currents. Countless chains and pieces of the Grand Tao floated up and down, destroying everything. Lightning, vermilion bird flame, sea calming ice, azure dragon mystic water, winged dragon thick earth, and other lights intertwined and wreaked havoc in the air. Not to mention being hit, just being touched by the slightest bit of it would immediately kill those cultivators. Warships would explode and thousands of alien cultivators would fall at every moment. Hurry up! Don't obstruct my path! A soul formation grand cultivator yelled. He was so frightened that his soul almost left his body. Since he was blocked by the ships of the cultivators in front of him, he directly attacked and smashed a ship into pieces. Hundreds of cultivators on board were turned into powder. Ah! He's here. Don't blame me. Some nascent soul cultivators even grabbed their partners to stop Jiang Tian, but it was useless. They were smashed into pieces by Jiang Tian, then burned into smoke by the Red Sparrow Fire Divine Law. Senior Tai Chu, please don't kill me. To tell you the truth, I am a citizen of the ruins of immortality. In essence, I am a descendant of the ancient heavenly court. We are of the same race. Some nascent soul heavenly lords were so frightened by Jiang Tian that they knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. He wasn't lying. 3 years ago, when Luochen of the Saint Era Sword Sect and the others passed by the ruins of immortality, he took some talented disciples from the barbarian worlds and the Wu Luo sect as servants. Strictly speaking, they were also the interstellar wanderers under Emperor Zhongli's command and descendants of the deity ground. They also wanted to invade Earth during the chaos, but they didn't expect to be defeated. At this moment, the entire army was in chaos, like a pot of boiling porridge. However, regardless of how they reacted, whether they resisted with their lives or knelt down to beg for mercy, Jiang Tian mercilessly killed his way over. Clang! Jiang Tian moved forward. His black hair fluttered like a waterfall and his face was as cold as iron. He walked like a kunpeng flying in the sky and a true dragon flying in the sky. He looked disdainful, as if he were the only dominator in the world. He slashed with his sword, like an ancient deity fiend harvesting the lives of others. Crack! Crack! The sky cracked. Every time Jiang Tian slashed with the heavenly sword, it was powerful and invincible. Everything within a 1,000-mile radius was in chaos. Countless nascent soul cultivators and golden core cultivators fell like rain and ships were shattered into pieces. Nobody could fight back. In the end, the battlefield had almost become a land of death. It was like a primeval Azura battlefield that was filled with the aura of blood and iron. Severed limbs, flesh, and blood surged through the sky like a tide, and the wreckage of ships floated in the air while flickering with a metallic sheen. Various remnant souls wailed sorrowfully as the aura of blood shot into the sky, and they grieved the heavens and the earth. Only the geniuses on the galaxy list had a chance to defend themselves and escape, but they were not in a good state either. They were all swept up by the Dharma laws. Their hair was disheveled, their faces were covered in dust, their bodies were stained with blood, their skin was torn, their armor was dim, and their swords were broken. Kang Te-chu, you're the one who forced us to do this. Some soul formation elites were driven to desperation. They roared and chose to self-destruct. Their bodies and divine treasures let out beams of light, as if a sun had exploded in the sky. In the end, their divine treasures were burned and turned into beams of light, shooting towards Jiang Tian. At that moment, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The sun and the moon collapsed. Countless stars seemed to have fallen from the sky and the entire earth shook. But it was useless. The cauldron of creation was pushed to the extreme. Chaotic chi flowed down like rivers of stars. Its defense was so powerful that it wasn't affected at all. Not even the self-destruction of a sacred soul formation elite from the previous generation on the Star River Roll could do anything to Jiang Tian. The others were in complete despair. What was the point of fighting? Even if they weren't afraid of death, it would be worth it if they could injure their enemy severely. At least they could comfort themselves. But then, screw it. Where there's life, there's hope. Let's run. Don't worry about the battleships. In order to escape, they had to abandon the space warships with supplies and the cultivators who were supporting them. Riding their quasi-saint weapons, they turned into streaks of brightness and brushed past Earth at an unparalleled speed, trying to get out of here alive. Moreover, the army had already been slaughtered by Jiang Tian until only a few big cats and small cats remained, and the army was almost completely annihilated. You want to run? Jiang Tian chuckled. All of a sudden, he stepped into the sky and flew up to the sky. He stood above the battlefield and flicked his finger. The divine sword caught up with the 5 semi-god realm cultivators in an instant. It drew a curve in the sky and disappeared like a bolt of lightning. He put the sword back into its sheath. Jiang Tian looked calm and stood with his hands behind his back. Rumble. The 5 soul formation elites paused for a moment. Then, shock, fear, desperation and unwillingness appeared on their faces. The next second, they all exploded. With a single slash, the Galaxy List prodigy who had accompanied Qin Pu to attack Earth, Mo Jin. At that moment, the entire world went silent. Countless people could only stare at Jiang Tian, who was standing in the sky with his robe fluttering in the wind, dumbfounded. They witnessed his brilliance when he suppressed the entire star ocean. Many people's hearts trembled as a trace of understanding rose in their hearts. From that day on, no one in the entire solar system, the South Gate stars and the entire Milky Way would dare to provoke Jiang Tian, not even the divine sects. What was unparalleled in the world? That was unparalleled in the world. May 7, 2018. Kang Te-chu, the leader of the Earth's Mythology Alliance, the principal of Tianqing School and the new heavenly emperor of the Ruins of Immortality, killed the coalition army of the 4 most powerful divine sects, 4 saints and 9 Star River elites. He defeated an army of 200,000 cultivators by himself. The entire Star Ocean was shocked when the news spread out. Chapter 1794. We're willing to submit to the Divine Lord of the Taichu sect. We'll sign a divine soul contract and pledge our loyalty to him. All the cultivators from other planets who witnessed this scene were shocked and terrified. They didn't have the courage to resist or run away anymore, they just knelt on the ground. They knew that resistance was futile. If they were loyal, they might still have a chance to survive. Not only them. Heavenly Star, Heavenly State, Chia, West Earth, and many other worlds in the solar system, countless people who witnessed this scene were also shocked by Jiang Tian's power. He had killed so many elites on the galaxy list and 4 pre-saints. The Divine Lord of the Big Dipper divine sect was like a dog that had lost its home. Such a powerful battle record was unprecedented. Not even the grand cultivators from the ancient deity land and earth 100,000 years ago had such a powerful battle record. His battle record is brilliant and his power is invincible. This means that Earth has won the ticket to the Star Ocean under the leadership of the Divine Lord of the Taichu sect. A glorious era of cultivation is about to begin. General Keynes held a press conference at the headquarters of the Earth Defense Coalition Army in the Black Eagle Federation to make the final note of this battle. Countless people were excited and invigorated. At this moment, the Black Eagle Federation, Japan, Sidoni and even ordinary people were also excited and cheered for Jiang Tian's victory. Many people spontaneously held celebrations and gathered under Jiang Tian's bronze statue. Jiang Tian didn't just represent the Tianqing School or the cultivators of Huaxia, he was also the leader of the Myth Alliance. He represented the cultivation civilization of the solar system and the South Gate planet region. His rise would lead to the rise of the entire solar system and the South Gate planet region. Once such a person appeared, his power would spread and his name would spread far and wide. The Beta planet region and other planet regions wouldn't dare to act recklessly. He defeated the entire Beta sect army by himself. Countless cultivators exclaimed. The cultivators from other dimensions, including Lotus Lord, Ding Lai, Lucifer, Yi, Xiaoman and Huiyan, were all shocked when they saw this through their Dharma artifacts. Who would have thought that Jiang Tian would obtain such a terrifying opportunity in the Ruins of Immortality? He had only spent 5 years in the Ruins of Immortality. Over the past 5 years, the sun and the moon had changed, the stars had moved, and time had passed. The earth had undergone great changes. The recovery of spirit qi had already produced many talents, but Jiang Tian had gone further and higher. They did not have the courage to chase after him and could only look up to him. On the other hand, the capitulators, defeatists, and pathfinders on Earth looked as if they had lost their parents. In fact, apart from some idiots, there were also some old enemies of Jiang Tian. For example, Mitsui and the other Japanese tycoons, the Morgan family and the other giants of the Blackhawk Federation. Jiang Tian had once deprived him and attacked him. When the outer realms descended, they naturally stood opposite to Jiang Tian. They hugged the outer realm's thighs and became the representatives of their worldly wealth. For example, Old Morgan once again followed the superbrain race in the outer realm and became a believer of the Golden Temple. When Jiang Tian fought with the Big Dipper cultivators, most of the comments that were pessimistic about Jiang Tian were led by them. I never expected him to be so strong. He's still so strong. Old Morgan's face was ashen. He sighed and found a shotgun. He stabbed the muzzle of the gun into his mouth and pulled the trigger. The bullets hit his skull, and red and white things splattered all over the ground. There were many people who chose to commit suicide like Old Morgan. In fact, in Jiang Tian's eyes, these secular people were like ants. Jiang Tian did not pay attention to them at all. He was like a true dragon roaming the 9 heavens. Why would he care about the thoughts and actions of the mayflies under his feet? However, the problem was that Jiang Tian had many believers. The Tianqing school and the Myth Alliance were even more powerful. Jiang Tian ignored them, but the Myth Alliance would deal with them. At that time, they would be judged and die in endless humiliation and pain. It would be better to just commit suicide. It's time to give the Divine Lord of the Taichu a title. Hold a grand ceremony that will attract the attention of many cultivation worlds on Earth, the solar system, and even the neighboring South Gate star zone and the extraterrestrial galaxies. Let's crown the Divine Lord of the Taichu. We'll announce the rise of Earth to the universe and return to the peak of the ancient times. Old Lord Liansheng walked to Jiang Chang'eng and asked respectfully. His suggestion instantly received the unanimous approval of the higher-ups of Tianqing School, including Jiang Chang'eng. Then, through various media, the news spread all over the world. Everyone, from 80-year-old women to 3-year-old children, knew about it. Immediately, Earth was in an uproar. The 5 years of the recovery of spirit qi were 5 years of bravery and improvement, but also 5 years of disasters. Demons wreaked havoc on the Earth, the Big Dipper arrived, and the flames of war continued. People were in a terrible situation and were fooled and bullied endlessly. Now, they had finally regained control and wiped out the evil. They should indeed hold an incomparably grand ceremony to crown Jiang Tian and celebrate at the same time. Jiang Beibei was running all over the sect, shouting loudly, "My dad won, my mom won. We've beaten the bad guys away." At the same time, on the extraterrestrial battlefield, Jiang Tian's sword had already been sheathed, so there was no need to kill anymore. He glanced at the remaining few thousand cultivators and said softly, "Since you've pledged your loyalty to me and I'm not a cruel person, I'll make a divine soul contract with you and guard this place well." Then, the golden lake in Jiang Tian's forehead rippled and the divine soul of the demon god of hell came out. It instantly split into 2, 4, and 8. In the blink of an eye, there were thousands of them, invading their minds and making a divine soul contract. Then, Jiang Tian ignored them and stepped into the void. In the blink of an eye, he arrived on the unsetting sun. Just as Jiang Tian was fighting with the four sage-to-be, Zhao Xueqing also led the unsetting sun, many corpse generals, and the Black Jade Kylan to a fierce battle with the Big Dipper prodigies. It was a fierce battle. Even though Zhao Xueqing was a deity semi-god realm cultivator, she was still weak. On the other hand, the prodigies on the Star River list were peak divine semi-god realm cultivators. Each of them was as powerful as Zhao Xueqing. Just now, many prodigies had joined forces to besiege Zhao Xueqing. Now, the battleship was full of sword marks and more than half of it had been destroyed. The corpse generals on it were almost completely wiped out. Even the Black Jade Kylan was severely injured. Many of its scales had fallen off and it was covered in blood. "Qing'er, it's been hard on you." Jiang Tian saw that Zhao Xueqing's armor had been destroyed and her divine body was covered in wounds. Her black hair was stained with blood and stuck to the corners of her mouth, but her eyes were still so gentle and determined. He could not help but feel pity for her. This Zhao Xueqing was just a clone of his original body. When Jiang Tian had used the creation substance and the 5 elements quasi-immortal material to create this clone, his purpose was to let her replace his original body and be taken away by his previous life's teacher, the undying monarch. No matter how good Jiang Tian's foundation was, his cultivation was limited. The gap between him and his teacher, who was a 9 heavens Xian immortal, was still too big. Ever since this clone was created, Jiang Tian had been estranged from her. In Jiang Tian's heart, she was just a tool to confuse the undying monarch. But today, seeing Zhao Xueqing fighting so valiantly and her love for him and her child, he felt a trace of reluctance and guilt. She did not know that she was a clone and had a completely independent consciousness. Was it fair for him to cruelly decide her fate? It's not hard. For our child, for Earth, it's worth dying. Zhao Xueqing sensed Jiang Tian's love and concern. Crystal tears rolled down her cheeks like broken pearls, and she was about to throw herself into Jiang Tian's arms. At this moment, however, the large black dog was one step ahead of her. He leaped into Jiang Tian's arms and howled with tears and snot running down his face. "My lord, Little Black was so worried about you just now. I also fought bravely and fearlessly against the enemy. I was afraid that they would invade Earth. You have to reward me, at least, 1/2 kilogram of spirit pills." Jiang Tian was speechless. "This evil dog, did you think that my divine sense did not detect anything when I was fighting the 4-sage-to-be? When the geniuses of the previous generation brought by Qin Pu began to attack Earth, you just abandoned Zhao Xueqing and the Black Jade Qilin and ran at least 10,000 miles away, okay? You didn't lose a single hair, and you call that fighting bravely and fearlessly? Shameless." Chapter 1795. You can rest now. The Black Jade Qilin covered its face with its hands, feeling embarrassed for the purple gold true dragon. She didn't understand why the purple gold true dragon had such a pure and noble bloodline. Besides, he had reached the nascent soul realm and could transform into a human at will, but he chose such a wretched appearance like a large black dog. Now, she understood. The large black dog was afraid of death. How could there be such a cowardly divine beast in the world? It was a disgrace to all divine beasts. "Do you still want to eat spirit pills? You're so fat. I'll kill you to nourish your mistress' body." Jiang Tian pushed the large black dog away and said with a half-smile. "I'm so skinny and I don't have much flesh on my body. You still want to kill me? I don't want to eat spirit pills. You can give them to little Momo." The large black dog was so scared that its hair stood on end and it rushed towards Earth. "Let Jiang Bebe ride the large horse a few times. When master wants to eat me one day, your daughter will fight you to the death." "Humph, Kang Te Chu, although you're strong, you're just a henpecked son of your daughter. Are you more scheming than me? Let master give me spirit pills. He's so kind. Is he interested in me?" The Black Jade Qilin suddenly blushed and suddenly realized something. Its scales stood up and it roared as it chased after the large black dog. "Don't go, large black dog. What are you thinking? Tell this great ant clearly." When Jiang Tian and Zhao Xueqing returned to the central hall of Tianqing School, their family and friends all came and greeted them. Zhang Wanqing hugged Qing'er and cried, saying that if Qing'er died, she wouldn't live either. This battle lasted less than 10 days, but it was extremely dangerous and tragic, far more than any other battle in the history of Earth. Jiang Bebe threw herself into Jiang Tian's arms and called him a hero in her childish voice. Truth be told, Jiang Tian had used the consummate heaven sword on multiple occasions to slaughter chosen and slaughter great sages, and had consumed a significant amount of energy. In fact, it had even caused his cultivation base to drop, leaving him incredibly weak. But at this moment, as he held his daughter's delicate body, he suddenly felt that all his efforts and risks were worth it. After chatting for a while, Jiang Tian brought up the plan to hold the Divine Lord Grand Ceremony and asked Jiang Tian to make the decision. "Right now, it's feasible." Jiang Tian nodded. If the immortal entrapment formation created by the ancient virtuous sages was a strategic ambush, then Jiang Tian's strategy was a strategic deterrence. The Big Dipper star zone was 120 light-years away from Earth. However, there were many cultivation star zones just 10 light-years away. These were also threats to Earth. According to the time in his previous life, Master would descend to Earth in a few months and take him away. However, Jiang Tian already understood that the person he really wanted to take away was Zhao Xueqing, who had the pure phoenix immortal body. Whether or not it would take him away was also an unknown. Even if the immortal emperor didn't take him away, he would go straight to the star ocean to find an opportunity to become a deity. In fact, his real advantage wasn't in the Milky Way, but in the central galaxy. He had cultivated and lived in the central galaxy for thousands of years in his previous life, so he almost knew everything about it. After he entered the deity realm in 9 heavens, he even knew the central galaxy like the back of his hand. Over there, he was clearly aware of the branches of immortal and divine materials, the birth and rise of geniuses, and even the secrets of the immortal Holy Land's peerless divine sect's history. He had the advantage of foresight, so his cultivation speed would be even smoother and faster than it was now. The Milky Way was relatively unfamiliar to him. It was like a remote village. He had already entered a bustling city. Why would he take a second look at it? Once he and Zhao Xueqing left or were taken away, there would be no more soul formation cultivators on Earth, at least not in a short period of time. So, it was necessary to let those cultivation civilizations in other planets know about the existence of Kang Te Chu and that there were two super-strengthened deities on Earth. The valiant results of today's battle would shock the entire starry sky. At least, no other cultivation civilizations would dare to invade Earth in a short period of time. In the end, the Divine Lord coronation was set for 2 months later. Those 2 months were for the cultivators from other planets to arrive and for Earth to prepare for the ceremony. The Olympic Games and the World Cup took 7 to 8 years. The Divine Lord coronation ceremony, the grandest event on Earth, was already too rushed to prepare for it in half a year, let alone 2 months. And yet, Jiang Tian couldn't wait any longer. He wanted Zhao Xueqing's clone to enjoy the last bit of glory and peace. In fact, Jiang Tian's battle had indeed affected the Star Ocean. The battle in front of Earth's gate had ended, but the aftermath of the battle had just begun. When the 4 half-saints arrived on Earth, their Dharma power surged and shook the Star Ocean. The Orion arm of the Milky Way, especially the sects near the Beidou, the Solar System and the South Gate planet region, were paying close attention to the outcome of the battle. The Solar System, the Beidou, and the South Gate planet region are all located in the Orion arm of the Milky Way. It's a small arm between 2 other spiral arms. The cultivation civilizations in the Milky Way called this area the Little Tiannan planet region, or the Little Tiannanhong planet region. The Little Tiannan planet region was extremely vast, with countless planets and planet regions. There were even a few hundred thriving cultivation planet regions like the Beidou, which were the most powerful in the world. Even though the Little Tiannan planet region and the entire Milky Way were just a barren area on the edge for the sacred grounds and the top families deep inside the central galaxy, it was too small to raise a true dragon. However, for the creatures living in the Little South Heavenly Realm, it was an extremely vast and magnificent world that they couldn't travel all over in their lifetime. Some nascent soul cultivators had once tried to fly across the entire planet region with their Dharma power alone without using teleport arrays. In the end, they passed through 8 star systems like the South Gate planet region and the Solar System, then died after running out of life. Even with the teleport arrays, the Little South Heavenly Realm was still too big. It should be noted that the ancient sages of Earth and the ancient deity ground were extremely resourceful. They used planets and continents as arrays, consumed countless heavenly materials and earthly treasures, and worked hard for tens of thousands of years, but they only reached the neighboring South Gate galaxy, which was only 422 light-years away from Earth. The overlord of the wood spirit planet and the alien races from the Palace of the Ruins of Deity went on an expedition to the Star Ocean, facing the disaster of the chaotic planets. However, only the Heavenly Shepherd Divine General arrived in the Solar System after thousands of years. The others had almost all died in the lonely Star Ocean. The Beidou planet region was the most powerful planet region in the Little South Heavenly Realm. Its cavalry swept across the planets and was invincible. Its endless army was invincible in the Star Ocean. The other cultivation planet regions were like mice in front of a cat. Every move of the half-saints like Qin Pu, who were called the ancestral patriarchs of the Beidou planet region, certainly attracted the attention of the other cultivation planet regions. Even though the soul formation grand cultivators in those planet regions weren't as powerful as Qin Pu and the other half-saints, who could easily observe everything around Earth through the endless Star Ocean, these cultivators certainly had their own means of observing the universe. They knew the result almost as soon as the battle outside Earth ended. Some peak-stage soul formation cultivators activated the message arrays with their top Dharma power and sent the news of the battle to the other planets. Those message arrays were only set up a few years ago. There was a tall tower every few planets. In this tower, there were soul formation cultivators overseeing and observing the situation. They were responsible for activating the sound transmission spell formation and spreading the news in all directions. Soon, The news was spread across the little south heavenly realm and even beyond the region, to the depths of the universe. In a blink, the entire Milky Way and the little south heavenly realm were in an uproar. The allied army of the Beta divine sect was destroyed by Jiang Tian. Han Ming, the sect master of the Beihan sect, died and Qin Yu, Gui Yufan and the other elites on the Star River were killed. If the news was said to have surprised everyone, then what came next was fear and shock. What? Qin Pu, a half-saint ancestral patriarch with the divine power of all-knowing, showed up and teamed up with Elder Qing Huang, Fairy Furong, and Fu Canghai, but they were all killed by Divine Lord Jiang in front of Earth? That's impossible. Almost everyone was shocked when they heard the news. Chapter 1796. Ever since planet destruction arrived, I've ordered all of you to send Dharma artifacts to the solar system. You even said I was doing something unnecessary, but now it seems that it's necessary. On a planet with life next to the Ophiuchus star, which was 5.9 light-years away from Earth, a serpent that was thousands of feet long stood on its hind legs. Its cold and evil golden vertical pupils were fixed in the direction of the solid sphere, and it said with endless shock and horror, "What?" It said with horror, "Kang Te Chu is really terrifying." She stirred her tail gently and easily destroyed mountains. She had already reached the soul formation level, only a bit weaker than Qin Pu. Countless great demons around her flew up and down, all looking in the direction of Earth, supporting her as if she was the legendary snake goddess Medusa. A scroll that was 10,000 feet long appeared in the sky. It clearly showed the scene outside Earth, including the battle between Jiang Tian and Han Ming, as well as Qin Pu working with the other 3 half-saints to attack Jiang Tian. Ancestral patriarch, she is wise. Countless years ago, a supreme grand cultivator put a deity's body on the 3rd planet of the South Gate. 100,000 years ago, the deity's body on the 3rd planet of the South Gate woke up and exploded for the first time. 100,000 years ago, planet destruction arrived on ancient Earth. Emperor Sheng, Zhongli, Ao Huang, and the others drove the deity ground and other planets to wander around the South Gate galaxy. However, the ruins Emperor, Zhu Tian, Sang Ming, and the Master of the Academy seized the opportunity to take over. Until today, the spirit Qi on ancient Earth recovered and Kang Te Chu regained power. The South Gate and the solar system have been really lively in recent years. But who would have thought that none of this could escape the ancestral patriarch's observation? A flattering voice was heard. It was ancestral patriarch Xi's favorite son, named Xingning, who was already a mid-stage soul formation cultivator. Ah! That's because the Ophiuchus star was also put into the body of an ancient fiend god and cleaned by a magnificent array set up by a grand cultivator. The endless pure spirit Qi was extracted and sent to Earth to nourish planet destruction. Such a plan that uses the stars as chess pieces and the galaxy as the map is too terrifying. Old ancestor Xi lowered his head slightly as a trace of confusion and fear flashed through his vertical pupils. It's just that I didn't expect such an earth-shattering figure like Kang Te Chu to appear on Earth. He reversed the fate of a declining planet and even killed Qin Pu and other half-saints. It's really terrifying. However, when I think about the arrangements of the ancient Almighty, I really don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. Ancestor, this Kang Te Chu is so strong, what should we do? As the saying goes, befriend those far away and attack those near. He has already pushed back the Big Dipper constellation and is so close to us. Will he make a move on Ophiuchus constellation? How can I allow others to sleep beside my bed? Xingning frowned and said worriedly. Even Qin Pu is no match for him, what can we do? I'm just glad that although we've been observing closely all these years, at least we didn't invade the solar system. There's still the possibility of forming an alliance. Elder Shi sighed softly, with endless sorrow and a trace of fear. Forming an alliance. Ancestor, what do you mean? Xingning was confused. Kang Te Chu is a man with great talent and vision. He's also very broad-minded and isn't inferior to the sages of the ancient immortal ground. He even made a great declaration that the monsters and humans should be of the same mind. The Ophiuchus constellation is full of monsters and we've been isolated and bullied by the humans in the little Tiannan galaxy. Now that there is such a supreme god overseeing Earth and opening the door wide, how can we not take the opportunity to hug his thigh and befriend him? With a shake of her body, Madame she turned into a charming woman dressed in palace attire. If it wasn't for the fact that her vertical pupils hadn't changed, she would have looked like a human. She flung her sleeves and said, "We will prepare a generous gift and head to Earth to participate in this grand event. We will congratulate Taoist Grand Shu on his ascension to the position of divine monarch. Not only ancestral patriarch Shi and Xingning." In Fomalhaut, 25 light-years away from the solar system, on a planet of life that was 10 times vaster than Earth before the revival of spiritual energy, an old half-saint who looked extremely old but whose power was deep and half of his deity was entrusted to the void stood up and laughed aloud. "I didn't expect that Qin Pu would suffer such a great loss. He deserves it. He didn't take the universe seriously just because he had so many half-saints and so many talents. Now, he's in trouble." Saint Anpo was gloating. The more he thought about it, the happier he became. He gathered the elites in the Fomalhaut star region and flicked his sleeves. He waved his hand and grabbed a space shuttle. He stepped on it and announced, "We'll prepare a generous gift and go to the solar system to show our utmost respect to Tai Chu Divine Lord on Earth." The Beta star region had been fighting in the star ocean for hundreds of thousands of years, killing and robbing everywhere. They had dyed the universe with blood and billions of lives were lost. They had colonized other planets and were extremely powerful. The cultivators of many star fields both feared and hated them. However, between these two emotions, hatred occupied more of the majority. However, those star regions that had been colonized and oppressed didn't have the strength to resist, so they could only hide their hatred and unwillingness in their hearts. However, Jiang Tian's brilliant record of killing the 4 half-saints gave them a glimmer of hope. A glimmer of hope to break free from the Beidou star region and regain freedom and development. How could they not be excited and unhappy? Not only the Ophiuchus star region, the Fomalhaut star region, the Ancient Rock star region, the Dark Mist star region and the Tianlang star region. Soon, all the planets and star regions in the Little Tiannan star region received the news. Shock, confusion, joy, and gloating, all kinds of complicated emotions appeared in the hearts of countless cultivators. Many ancestral patriarchs even ordered that they couldn't set foot in the solar system and the South Gate star region easily. They couldn't covet or disrespect Jiang Tian and his forces. Otherwise, they would be expelled forever and grand cultivators would be sent to the netherworld to hunt them down. In a blink, the solar system and the South Gate star region, which were like small puddles in the eyes of the cultivators from the star ocean, instantly became dangerous and even forbidden places. Jiang Tian's name was the first to cause a sensation in the star regions. The Beidou star region was also shocked and astonished. Jiang Tian's power was beyond their imagination. Many cultivators of the Beidou star region couldn't imagine how a cultivator from the remote solar system could defeat the coalition forces of the Beihan sect and the other 3 divine sects led by Han Ming. He could even destroy a planetary city in space and kill Qin Pu and the other 3 half-saints, who had been traveling in the star ocean for 50,000 years and hadn't returned. Those half-saints were the most powerful overlords below the saints. And it was said that Earth had only recovered its spirit chi 5 years ago. It had started to wither 100,000 years ago and there weren't many nascent soul cultivators left. That's impossible. Let's not talk about whether this record is true or not. What we can confirm is that Earth has been in decline for 100,000 years and its spirit chi has dried up. It was a heaven and earth cage without any cultivation resources. In the entire Beidou star region and the 7 galaxies, the fastest cultivator is the deity-grade nascent soul cultivator who was born 200,000 years ago. However, it was said that even that person had to spend 200 years of hard work to reach the nascent soul stage. He's only a few decades old. How could he reach the nascent soul level? This is simply a myth. Someone sneered and shook his head. Right. This nascent soul cultivator who's not even 50 years old defeated hundreds of thousands of soldiers alone and killed 2 half-saints in a row. The solar system has been in decline for a long time. It used to be suppressed by the deity trap array, and even the foundation establishment level was difficult. How could there be a cultivator who killed 2 half-saints in a row? He must be bluffing. Others also had doubts. Chapter 1797. Many Baidu cultivators were confused. The top divine sects like the Beihan sect, the exiled deity Hall, the Wuji sect and the Feiyang sect remained tight-lipped about the battle. Outsiders didn't know what exactly happened. They only heard from Han Sheng, Luo Chen, and the other cultivators who had escaped from the battlefield at Earth's Gate. And yet, the Jiang Tian they were talking about was too unbelievable. Something about having a divine disc behind his back, being able to control many immortal grade or even higher laws of nature, slicing through holy weapons with a single sword strike, piercing through planetary cities in space with a single cauldron strike, having many clones, creating a spatial storm with a single sword strike. Such an overlord was comparable to the legendary Void returning saints, but he was only a nascent soul cultivator. It was unbelievable and illogical. Such a nascent soul cultivator could only be a deity-grade nascent soul cultivator, or even a higher one, which could only be born in the central galaxy. How could he be born in the entire Milky Way, not to mention the solar system? It was like a true dragon couldn't be born in shallow water and a divine phoenix couldn't be born in a forest. Cultivators originally followed the Tao of nature or seized the fortune of the heavens and the earth. The heavens and the earth were exceedingly narrow, so how could it possibly give birth to such a heaven-defying genius? A nascent soul cultivator less than 50 years old defeated the allied army of the divine sects and killed Han Ming and the other elites on the Star River Roll. I've heard some rumors that Kang Te-Chu had indeed killed many soul formation cultivators in the South Gate planet system. Some senior members of the divine sects speculated that he might be the reincarnation of a grand cultivator. But what about killing 4 pre-saints? That's bullshit. Divine Lord Tian Wan, a well-respected old divine lord in the Mizang planet region, commented calmly. But, Senior Tian Wan. Han Sheng and Luo Chen have sent a message back. They said it's true. Below the stairs, some disciples and juniors asked in confusion. Before Divine Lord Tian Wan said anything, someone next to her snickered. Han Ming, Gui Yufan and Qin Yu all died there. Don't these cultivators who escaped alive want to absolve themselves of blame for their actions? Many galaxy roll prodigies opened up new territories for the Big Dipper starfield. They fought for millions of miles in the starry sky and did not retreat a single step. They had actually become deserters, and had been scared away by a mere native of the wilderness. That's so embarrassing. How could they not fabricate an invincible opponent to hide their cowardice and incompetence? Many people nodded in approval of this statement. Just you wait. The 4 strongest divine sects were not incompetent, and they had never suffered such a huge loss before. That Kang Te-Chu will definitely suffer revenge 10 times crueler than before. Someone gloated. However, after waiting for a few days, the 4 most powerful holy sects in the Kaiyang Star region and the Alcade Star region, including the Freezing North sect, which had suffered great losses in the solar system, still hadn't sent out any orders to attack Earth again. Instead, there was an order from the higher-ups to march to the other side of the little heavenly south starfield. This confused many people. Could the rumors about Kang Te-Chu be true? During this period, the entire Little Tiannan starfield was in an uproar because of Jiang Tian's battle. Some people were happy, some were shocked, some were scared, some were confused, and some were disdainful. But no one dared to ignore Jiang Tian. Many cultivators ranked him first on the Star River Roll or third on the Star Region Roll of the Little Tiannan starfield. He was one of the most powerful cultivators below the Void Return Saints. On Earth. Time flew. A month had passed since the Battle of Saints. The Divine Lord coronation ceremony was just around the corner. During this time, many tycoons, sects, families and mystic realms on Earth were willing to give up everything they had to please Jiang Tian. Land, buildings, materials, funds and procedures were all easily given. Sidonia and many other superpowers around the world gave the green light. The king of Sidoni, Arthur, even rolled up his sleeves and went to the Tianqing school training hall in person. He wore a safety helmet and looked like a contractor. By then, the entire Sidoni had become a hot land for construction. An unprecedentedly large project was about to begin. Not only on Earth. Lucifer, Yi Yi, and Yi Xiaoman from Heavenly State, Tang Linglong, Tathagata Luomei, and Elder Huiyan from West Earth, Ding Lai, Ding Lingdang, Miao Yi Fairy and Jiang Yunhe from Star World, the realm lord of the Chiye world led cultivators above the Golden Core level to Earth on space battleships. Those worlds had also received endless nourishment after the recovery of spirit chi and had become floating continents. They were like new planets, which made the solar system even more lively. Many cultivators offered up huge amounts of cultivation resources with both hands. Some of the nascent soul stage grandmasters even offered up celestial mountains and pavilions. These celestial mountains and pavilions were all refined with special dharma powers. They were extremely beautiful, and each one of them shone with a myriad of lights. In the end, Zhang Qinzhen went to the Sea of Stars and led the experts of refining to repair a magnificent space city that had been beaten to the point that it had lost its power, transforming it into the absolute beginning pavilion. It floated above the training field of the Tianqing sect and emitted a gentle glow like a full moon, becoming the most important and central location of the entire Tianqing sect. Jiang Tian wasn't in a hurry to cultivate. He used countless souls to nourish Yi Tianren's remnant soul and used the remaining materials to rebuild his body. Yi Tianren was successfully resurrected and his power even increased a bit. He stepped into the nascent soul level, which also proved Jiang Tian's idea of recreating the 6 paths of reincarnation. Yi Karen was in tears. Every day, there were disciples and friends who came to greet him. Jiang Tian did not reject anyone who came, and also casually gave them pointers on their cultivation. That might be the last time he would stay on Earth. This time, he might only come back to solve the problem of the deity corpse on the 3rd planet of the South Gate when he entered the soul formation level 20 or 30 years later. So, he cherished every second he spent with his family, friends, and disciples. Master, I came out of seclusion after cultivating the fire deity body and entering the nascent soul level. You only asked for the golden core level back then. Tang Linglong bowed, then looked up and said with a hint of stubbornness. She was almost 30 years old now. Her childishness was gone, and she had a more mature charm than before. Ha! I should have let you cultivate to the soul formation level before coming out of seclusion. Jiang Tian laughed heartily. As their cultivation deepened and they understood the Dharma laws of heaven and earth, a cultivator's mentality would also become more detached. Their desire to live longer and jump to the next level of life would become stronger and they would see love more clearly. When he imprisoned Tang Linglong in the Fenchen Valley of the Fire Worship sect, he actually had that thought in mind. His plan seemed to be good at the moment. Tang Linglong's infatuated thoughts had long faded away. No way. Tang Linglong was shocked. All right, go and see your family. Jiang Tian waved his hand with a smile. You have a long way to go to guard the West Earth in the future. You saw the Big Dipper invasion this time. You should know the gap between you and them, right? Jiang Tian was also happy and gratified as he watched his disciples' cultivation level increase rapidly. Now, the several dimensions had become branches of the Tianqing school again, with each planet as the helm. Only then did they have the style of a large sect in the universe. One day, Jiang Tian suddenly asked, "Where's Huang Linger? Where did she go? I've been back for so long, but she didn't show up. Is she so hardworking?" He had wanted to give the core of the primordial tree to Huang Linger after getting it. However, he had always been introverted and adhered to the old dogma of monogamy. Even if he had some affection for Huang Linger, with Zhao Xueqing's clone and his daughter around, he wouldn't show it at all. He really couldn't hold it in today. Everyone was puzzled because they hadn't seen Huang Linger in a long time. Jiang Chang'an hurriedly dismissed his subordinates. Only he, Lotus Old Rulai, and Zhao Xueqing were left in the hall. Lotus Old Rulai sighed slightly and said, half a month after Mistress went to the ruins of immortality, Huang Linger and I were patrolling the Martian territory when she was taken away by a woman passing by. What? Jiang Tian narrowed his eyes slightly, and a cold light flickered. Chapter 1798. Everyone knew that Huang Linger had a special relationship with Jiang Tian, and she was his disciple. Anyone who touched Huang Linger was no different from attacking Tianqing school. During that time, although Han Ming coveted Earth, he was still at the stage of conciliation. How could he kidnap Huang Linger? Zhao Xueqing also frowned and scolded, why didn't you report such a big thing to Jiang Tian? She remembered that when she and Jiang Tian returned, a great war was about to break out. She softened her tone and said, silly. Even if you were worried about disturbing Jiang Tian's Taoist heart, you couldn't not tell me. That woman was wearing an ancient robe and communicated with me through divine sense. She didn't know Earth's language. She said she was Lian Huahan, the saintess of the Luoying sect. She liked Huang Linger's Yiwood spirit root at first sight. She was the soul formation seed that their sect dreamed of. Lotus Rulai bowed and said, you just let her take Huang Linger away. Jiang Tian snorted, and the temperature in the central main hall suddenly dropped. The big black dog, who was sunbathing and eating spicy sticks with the black jade Kylan in the pool outside the door, shivered in fear. He quickly stood up and said, let's go. Master is angry. He might kill me. After all, I haven't succeeded in losing weight yet. Sect Master, please don't be angry. Lotus Rulai was so scared that he knelt on the ground. Jiang Chang'an also smiled bitterly. At that time, Lotus Rulai communicated with me through a cosmic communication Dharma artifact. We couldn't do anything. At that time, you had been in the Star Ocean for 2 years and there was no news from you. Qing'er also followed him on the unsetting sun. That was when the Beta Demon clan was causing chaos on Earth. We didn't dare to make too many enemies. And I stopped him. But I was sent flying with a single finger. At that time, I was already a nascent soul cultivator. Now that I think about it, that Saintess Lian Huahan should be at the soul formation realm. Lotus Rulai said bitterly. Hearing this, Zhao Xueqing was shocked. Soul formation realm? From the Saint Origin world? Could she be a Big Dipper cultivator? Could it be that Saint Origin world is one of the Big Dipper stars? No. But don't worry, I can find them. Jiang Tian shook his head slowly. His eyes flickered as he pinched the armrest of the chair and sighed in his heart. Saint Origin continent was the first continent that Jiang Tian had visited with his master, the Undying Sovereign, in his previous life. It was located at the edge of the central galaxy. As for the Luoying sect, it was one of the top 5 great sects in the Saint Origin world. That's good. Once the ceremony is over, we will go to Saint Origin world and ask for Ling-er back. Zhao Xueqing said with determination. Forget it. Since he's a disciple, there shouldn't be any problems for the time being. Don't worry about it. Jiang Tian frowned, but in the end, he relaxed and said. He had a vague guess in his heart. That Lian Huahan must have taken a fancy to Huang Linger's physique. Huang Linger's Yiwood spirit physique was extremely rare. After years of cultivation under Jiang Tian's guidance, it was infinitely close to an immortal physique and incomparably close to the power of plants. Moreover, she had already stepped into the nascent soul realm at such a young age. It could be said that her future was limitless. A soul formation seed like her would be well protected. Moreover, the Luoying sect was originally very strong. He had also heard of Lian Huahan in his previous life. She wasn't an evil person and had a good reputation. Moreover, according to Jiang Tian's plan, the first place he would go after entering the Star Ocean was Saint Origin world. Because according to the time, in 10 years, Saint Origin world would have an item that could be called a divine material, which would be very beneficial to his cultivation. In his previous life, Jiang Tian was casually taught a cultivation method by the immortal sovereign and left in Saint Origin world. Jiang Tian had cultivated in Saint Origin world for 100 years before he stepped into the Foundation establishment realm. When that treasure was born, he was a pitiful little chi refinement cultivator. He didn't even have the chance to take a look at it, so naturally, he missed it. But this time, he was already a divine nascent soul cultivator. In that world, he could already be called a giant and could even step into the soul formation realm. How could he miss it? He had the foresight and had the initiative. Who could compete with Jiang Tian? Time flew. The day of Jiang Tian's Divine Lord coronation ceremony was getting closer and closer. On this day, a deep space satellite and Dharma artifacts jointly captured a meteor in the sky that was speeding toward Earth. For a moment, the public was in an uproar. The entire Earth was in a panic. Did the enemy of the Beidou family come again? Then, a detailed image was sent. The so-called meteor turned out to be a 100-mile space battleship. There were many soul formation cultivators on it and they looked extraordinary. There were nascent soul cultivators around the battleship from time to time, walking in space to replenish arrays. Those cultivators looked ferocious and terrifying. Not only were there humans, but there were also terrifying monsters. For example, 2 divine bats were eating people every day and were dripping with blood. Canes even called Jiang Tian. Guild Master, there's a civilization from another planet heading to Earth and they're quite powerful. What should we do? Should we let the captives of the Beidou family stop them? What if they betray us at the last moment? Keynes was also panicking. That battleship was a peak-stage Dharma artifact, which could withstand standard controllable cluster nuclear weapons and large coalition attacks. Only a soul formation overlord like Jiang Tian could stop it. Don't worry. Open the gate of Earth and let them in. Jiang Tian only said one sentence and then hung up the phone. Keynes was in a panic. What did the Taichu Divine Lord mean? After all, Jiang Tian's bottom line was to leave the battlefield outside Earth. Even if the Dharma laws on Earth were strengthened, the attacks of soul formation grand cultivators were still terrifying. One attack could destroy 1,000 miles and kill all living beings. When he was about to call again, Jiang Changing had already called. Keynes was relieved after hearing that. He also ordered the troops from other planets not to disturb them and let them pass. Without the army to stop them, the battleship went straight into the atmosphere and flew towards Sidoni's Tianqing school. Then, more starry sky battleships entered, following behind them in a mighty manner. Countless people looked up in panic and focused their gazes on the ships that were about 100 miles long and looked like small mountains. Swish, swish. The first battleship flashed across the sky and a terrifying energy descended from the sky. Many soul formation cultivators and nascent soul cultivators stood on it. Yun Zhongzi looked down and said with a smile, "Is this the legendary mortal world? The spirit chi and dharma laws are as good as those in the deity ground. Looks like the rumors about the great opportunities on Earth are true." In the era of the ancient heavenly court, the deity ground and Earth were both planets in the solar system, but the spirit chi in the deity ground was more abundant. Deities and sages were everywhere, while Earth was much weaker. So, the deity ground was the deity realm in the ancient times and Earth was the mortal world. There was a clear difference between them. Only the most talented cultivators on Earth had the chance to enter the deity ground. And yet, the spirit chi on Earth was apparently several times more abundant than in the ruins of deity. Yun Zhongzi knew that was the result of the deity corpses buried on the third planet of the South Gate and the universe array continuously nourishing Earth and planet destruction. Fu Heishui and Fu Heishui opened their eyes wide and mumbled, "I wonder if they can find us divine bats and solve the problem of being single and having children." This is the home planet of the Taichu Divine Lord. There are many tall buildings and fortresses. It's extremely prosperous and lively. We'll be able to see the Taichu Divine Lord soon. I'm so excited. Ao Jiao, Qi Liqui, Long Xingnan, Bai Muxue, and the other girls widened their eyes and curiously observed the area below. They couldn't stop chattering with excitement on their faces. Niu Duotian, the Divine Ox General, said calmly, "We're almost there." Ah, we're too late. The Green Dragon King mocked himself and said in awe. I thought we'd be able to make it here and fight alongside the Heavenly Emperor by modifying the battleships according to the cultivation art left by the Heavenly Emperor. I didn't think the Heavenly Emperor of the Taichu Divine Lord had already killed the Big Dipper warriors. Chapter 1799. This is my live broadcast, a live report for you. The battleship you're looking at is a Tao artifact. There are at least 8 soul formation grand cultivators and a few hundred nascent soul cultivators on it. The media was really anxious. The reporters stationed in Saroni all reported. The female streamer who was watching my stream had blonde hair and blue eyes. She said solemnly, now, we can only hope that Taichu Divine Lord will act again and save the world. But he doesn't seem to want to do anything. Why did he let them in? 8 soul formation cultivators and they look so terrifying. They seem to be monsters. Does the Taichu Divine Lord want to catch them? Why hasn't he come out yet? Was Senior Taichu injured in the battle with the pre-saints? People around the world also looked at the screen anxiously and they were all shocked. They only knew it was a battleship from another planet, but they didn't know it was from the ruins of deity. They thought the Beidou invaders had returned. How could they not be worried? Finally, in front of everyone, many battleships flew to the Taichu pavilion. At that moment, countless people around the world looked up at the fleet in the sky. 1, 2, 3. 102 ships. Some people counted and their faces became paler. The others were even frightened. Some timid ones even cried. These 100-mile-long battleships were like mountains. They were even more terrifying than aircraft carriers. It was still acceptable to look at them in the vast starry sky, but up close, they were extremely impactful. Even those with a phobia of gigantism would be triggered. With over 100 ships added together, they were like clouds that blotted out the sky. Will Jiang Tian be okay? At that moment, Shen Lu and his wife, Lu Yiting, Iris and her sister, Chen Jinming and his wife, and other friends of Jiang Tian, were all looking at the screen anxiously. They're surrounded. Why aren't they fighting? In the Yuhua villa in the capital, Zhang Yilin also clenched her fists and stared at the screen anxiously. With the invincibility of your cousin, even the Beidou fleet that roamed the Sea of Stars was blown away. So what if it was just a small wave? Is there a bastion or a city? Zhang Jinghua, who was dressed in a traditional Chinese suit, comforted her softly. However, there was a hint of nervousness in his eyes. Even more people, such as Jiang Tian's factions Yigufeng, the Tang family, the Bai family, and the Tang family, as well as South Korea's Star Moon Lee Jinju and the heroes of the East Sea Sakura Society, were looking in the direction of the Heavenly Clear sect worriedly. There's no need to worry. Confidence was more important than gold. Believe in Tai Chu and gain eternal life. In a certain square, Tang Shaozi, the world's most famous psychic, Kang Taichu research expert, stood under the bronze statue of Jiang Tian. He clasped his hands together and spoke with a devout expression to the thousands of panicking believers below. The dimensional world has been conquered by absolute beginning. The ruins of immortality have been conquered by absolute beginning. The Big Dipper villain was defeated by absolute beginning. The Sea of Stars is there. Once you see it, you will conquer it. He was wearing a bright yellow robe and had a bald head. He had abstained from sex for more than 10 years, so his face was glowing even more. He was untainted by the secular world, detached from worldly affairs, and had a benevolent countenance. He completely looked like an enlightened monk. Tang Shaozi had become an expert on Jiang Tian and had published 5 or 6 biographies about Jiang Tian. Each of them was a bestseller and had sold over 100 million copies. He had many fans. By then, he was already on par with Peter Chen, the world's expert on cultivation history. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The wind was howling. The Tai Chu pavilion floating in the sky was silent. Nobody came out. There were only 100 battleships hovering around, weighing down on everyone's hearts. It felt like a century had passed. Creak. The magnificent gate made of space treasure metal slowly opened under everyone's nervous gaze. A laid-back young man walked out of the crowd. He was dressed in casual clothes and was dressed like a mundane person. His handsome face had a faint smile on it. Billions of people around the world were looking at him. Jiang Tian looked at the battleships and said, "What's the meaning of this? Do you want to show off your artifact making?" Then, something that shocked the world happened. Many soul formation cultivators and nascent soul heavenly lords, led by Yun Zhongzi, flew to the sky and knelt before Jiang Tianjie respectfully. They said in a trembling voice, "Greetings, divine generals and subjects of the new heavenly court of the ruins of immortality, His Majesty Tai Chu. May your Majesty's magic power continue to extend, your lifespan will be 10,000 years, and your immortal fortune will last forever." At that moment, the entire earth went silent. Everyone couldn't believe it. After Jiang Tian returned, he didn't hide anything from the ruins of immortality. But some people believed it, while others didn't. After all, they hadn't obtained any concrete information about the South Gate 2 Stars galaxy with their current technology. Many people didn't know the strength of the ruins of immortality and the North Star galaxy. This time, everyone was finally sure. Jiang Tian had become the master of the ruins of immortality. Thinking of this, countless people were shocked. He had conquered a galaxy 100 times larger than the solar system alone. The divine lord of the Tai Chu is invincible. Many people shouted excitedly. Now, Earth has 8 more divine lords. Even if the grand cultivators from the Star Ocean want to invade, they'll have to think twice. I'll say it again. Believe in the Tai Chu and you'll live forever. Tang Xiaozi waved his arms and shouted. Many people agreed. Zhao Xueqing also walked out and welcomed the arrival of the new Heavenly Court's heroes as the hostess. The spirit qi on earth is so strong and the Dharma laws are as strong as steel. We'll cultivate for 5 years and become a half-saint. If the 7-star cultivators come again, I'll crush their eyes. Tu Fei yelled after learning about the situation. Yun Zhongzi, Niu Duotian, Yi Chun, and Ying Long were also full of confidence. There was coldness in their eyes and their will to fight surged. These descendants of the primordial immortal land were all villains and bandits. Many of them had the bloodline of the demon gods and were used to doing whatever they wanted. They were lawless and had a bandit nature. Even though they knew that the Big Dipper cultivators were very strong, they weren't any weaker. Well, seeing the overlords of the ruins of deity, Jiang Changgang, Lian Sheng, and the others could only smile wryly. The most powerful one among them was only a nascent soul cultivator, while those from the ruins of deity were all soul formation cultivators and countless nascent soul cultivators. Besides, their blood was special, so they were indeed much more powerful than them. And the arrival of the ruins of deity was only the beginning. A few days later, another bronze, snake-shaped spaceship arrived outside Earth. A beautiful woman in a palace gown walked out with a few disciples. She said that she came from the Ophiuchus galaxy and her name was Shisha. She had traveled across the vast universe and was riding a bronze serpent boat. She had brought many disciples and followers to Earth to learn the scriptures, visit Jiang Taichu, and attend the grand ceremony. Ancestral patriarch, she was very kind and humble. Planet East used to be the most prosperous cultivation planet in the entire abandoned planet region, second only to the 7-star cultivators. Now that it's revived again, there are many golden core cultivators and countless elites. Cultivator Tai Chu has even reached the soul formation level. This old man is full of admiration, so I brought my disciples to the solar system to learn from him. The humans on Earth were extremely shocked. On one hand, they were astonished by how powerful Jiang Tian was and how he was famous in the Star Ocean. Ophiuchus was more than 5 light-years away from the solar system, but they had still heard about Jiang Tian's achievements. On the other hand, the cultivation civilization in the Star Ocean was flourishing. Traveling a few light-years in a month was unbelievable. Jiang Tian didn't refuse anyone. He sent his disciples to welcome them to the Tai Chu pavilion and had a drink with them. And that was only the beginning. Then, many grand cultivators from the star ocean arrived one after another, shocking the world. Chapter 1800. Then, Saint Anpo also led a dozen soul formation and nascent soul cultivators from the Fomalhaut planet region to Earth to attend the ceremony. A day later, soul formation grand cultivators and half-saints from the Gaian planet region, the Dark Mist planet region, the Tianlang planet region. Many smaller Tiannan planet regions gathered on Earth to worship Jiang Tian. Meanwhile, on Earth, humans and creatures discovered for the first time that the vast and empty space was actually so crowded and bustling. Many star regions that could only be vaguely seen through radio telescopes had, in fact, extremely powerful and prosperous cultivation civilizations. Swish, swish, swish. In the sky, starships and battleships streaked across the sky like streams of light. Some of these starships were over 100 miles long, and even the smallest one was over 1,000 zhang long. They were shaped like willow leaves, tigers and leopards, flood dragons, flying shuttles, and flying saucers. There were many shapes and different powers. Some used crystals, some used space warp drives, and some even created wormholes that could travel 1,000 miles in a blink, which was an eye-opener for people on Earth. Tisk, tsk. Oh my God! The ceremony of the Taichu Divine Lord is so shocking. I heard that the furthest blue wave planet region is 100 light-years away from Earth. It's not far from the Beidou planet region. Someone exclaimed. Yes. I heard that the blue wave planet region used to be the biggest port and station of the Beidou planet region, which was the only way to attack the star ocean. But now, even the blue wave planet region has come to congratulate them, which means that the Taichu Divine Lord has already sent his forces to the Beidou planet region. Someone who was in the know bragged. The depths of the universe are truly dangerous and terrifying. Look at those planets. Every one of them has a lot of divinity transformation stage cultivators and nascent soul stage cultivators. If they sweep across Earth, it will be as easy as cutting grass. We should be in awe of the star ocean and the civilizations. Chen Bide, an expert on the history of cultivation in the world, said on his personal Twitter account after learning about the relevant information. Immediately, many people agreed and reposted it. They also attached pictures of the spaceships, flying ships, and soul formation and divine emperors. Indeed, those soul formation, divine lords and half-saints were too powerful. Each of them had stirred up waves when they entered Earth. Dharma laws shook and abnormal phenomena appeared. In the eyes of ordinary people, they were really like deities, with the power to destroy the world and the stars. So what? Earth, or the solar system and the South Gate planet region, has the Taichu Divine Lord. No matter how strong they are, they still have to come and worship. Tens of thousands of immortals came with countless cultivation resources. Even the semi-god realm warriors lowered their heads when they saw them. That's the power of the Taichu Divine Lord. I still stand by my words. Believe in Taichu and you will have eternal life. On the other hand, Tang Xiaozi, the research expert of the Taichu Divine Lord, spoke in an arrogant tone. He attached many photos and even videos. In those videos and photos, those divine lords kowtowed to Jiang Tian and offered him countless cultivation treasures, as if they were disciples meeting a majestic master. Even though Saint Anpo was a half-saint whose name shook the star ocean and had a high status and a long lifespan, Jiang Tian's strength made them bow deeply and call him Divine Lord His Majesty. They were extremely humble. Those videos and photos attracted countless support and cheers. Many of Jiang Tian's followers almost went crazy. Ah, this is the power of a divine lord. I'm afraid that Earth and the deity ground weren't as powerful in the ancient times. If Emperor Sheng, Emperor Zhongli and Emperor Ao knew this, they would be able to rest in peace. When Yun Zhongzi witnessed the grand occasion, he was filled with emotion and tears welled up in his eyes. The Taichu Divine Lord suppressed the star ocean and thousands of deities came. This is unprecedented. The other descendants of the ancient deity land were also in tears. They looked at Jiang Tian, who was chatting with the grand cultivators from other planets, with respect. The ancient sages only wanted to preserve their roots when they started to wander the universe. And yet, Jiang Tian had turned Earth into a cultivation planet, suppressing the Big Dipper and becoming famous in the Tiannan planet region. This had already surpassed the ancient sages' goal. As the day of the ceremony approached and the grand cultivators from the Star Ocean arrived one after another, billions of people on Earth turned into a sea of joy. In order to let everyone on Earth, the South Gate planet region and other friendly planet regions witness this unprecedented Divine Lord coronation ceremony, the major media and TV stations in the world such as Watch Me Live, Mango TV, BBC and CNN worked together and used the military's satellites, aircraft, and sound transmission arrays to capture Sidoni's Tianqing School, the Taichu Pavilion and many other sects from 360 degrees, without missing anything. The person doing the live broadcast this time was the most popular streamer of Watch Me Live, Jiang Tian's sister-in-law, Zhao Qianru. Zhao Qianru had already become famous because the battle with the Preqin sect and the battle on the Kunlun Plaza in Jin City after Jiang Tian's return were all broadcasted by her. The other two guests were Chen Bide, a cultivation historian, and Tang Shaozi, an expert on the Taichu school. Finally, there was another important guest, the famous Saint Anpo. Saint Anpo had lived a long life and was knowledgeable. He was only a bit weaker than Qin Pu and the others in the Tiannan planet region. However, he had never seen such a strange technology on Earth. Facing that small lens, even if Saint Anpo's spiritual sense could scan a radius of thousands of miles, he could not understand how a mortal device without the slightest fluctuation of spiritual energy could transmit sound and image to billions of people. Welcome, Saint Anpo. Zhao Qianru was the first to clap. Nice to meet you, host, audience and cultivators. I'm honored to be the host of the Divine Lord coronation ceremony of the Taichu Divine Lord. Sage Anpo's sleeves fluttered, his face was rosy, his hair was white, and his face was ruddy. He looked like an old man, and he looked very humble and amiable. However, everyone thinks too highly of me. I'm only a half-saint. Calling me a saint is an exaggeration. Saint Anpo, can you explain to the audience what a Divine Lord is? Zhao Qianru asked with a smile. After the spirit qi was restored, Tianqing School didn't hide anything and publicized a lot of cultivation arts and general knowledge. However, everyone was still confused about the title of a Divine Lord. They certainly knew that Jiang Tian was powerful, much more powerful than normal nascent soul cultivators, but why would he shock the entire Tiannan planet region and make all the grand cultivators in 100 light years away go there? The descendants of the deity ground were so excited that they cried. Divine Lord is the title of a soul formation grand cultivator. However, I don't understand why the grand cultivators from the Star Ocean would pay so much attention to a Divine Lord coronation ceremony. Besides, you're a half-saint, a top soul formation cultivator. I'm afraid you're as powerful as the Taichu Divine Lord, right? You are so servile, do you not want this? Chen Bide asked. This was for the effect of the show, so it had to be a topic. Ha, the Taichu Divine Lord is indeed a nascent soul cultivator, but his nascent soul is extraordinary. It's a divine-grade nascent soul. Saint Anpo smiled and said, do you know what a divine-grade nascent soul is? Please tell us. Everyone was intrigued. Chapter 1801. The top nascent soul cultivators and soul formation cultivators in the human world should be at the sacred grade. Saint Anpo smiled and said, a sacred grade nascent soul cultivator or a soul formation cultivator is enough to defeat all the cultivators of the same level. They can be famous even in the vast central galaxy. Deity-grade nascent soul cultivators are very rare. There has only been one deity-grade soul formation cultivator in the last 200,000 years in the Tiannan planet region. How many deity-grade nascent soul cultivators have there been? Zhao Qianru asked curiously. A deity-grade nascent soul cultivator? The old man went through the records and there should be at least 100 of them in the last 200,000 years. Saint Anpo thought for a while and said, then why is there only one deity-grade soul formation cultivator? Zhao Qianru was even more confused. It's simple. The difference between a deity-grade nascent soul and a sacred-grade nascent soul is greater than the difference between a sacred-grade nascent soul and a mortal. A deity-grade nascent soul cultivator is already the seed of a deity. Everyone was shocked after hearing what Saint Anpo said. Zhao Qianru exclaimed, "Huh! The difference between a deity-grade nascent soul and a sacred-grade nascent soul was too shocking." Indeed. Saint Anpo smiled and said, "A sacred-grade nascent soul is the peak of the human world, but a deity-grade nascent soul is no longer in the human world. The two of them belong to a completely different level of life. Different levels of life require different amounts of energy and nourishment." The old man gave an example. Plants and trees can grow after bathing in the sun, rain, and dew and absorbing nutrients from the soil. Sheep can't eat soil or absorb sunlight, they can only eat grass and leaves. As for tigers and lions, they can only eat sheep. They can't even eat leaves and grass. Not to mention soil and sunlight. A deity-grade nascent soul cultivator is very powerful, but it also requires a higher level of energy. Once the Yuan Qi and Great Tao become too weak, the immortal grade 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 immortal, then, grand primordium's divine grade nascent soul and immortal grade nascent soul, which one is better? Zhao Qianru asked curiously. A deity grade one is stronger. Saint Anpo said excitedly, deity-grade nascent soul cultivators are rare in the Tiannan planet region, but there have been hundreds of them since the ancient times. However, there hasn't been a single divine-grade nascent soul in the past hundreds of thousands of years. Think about it, there are at least tens of thousands of planets like Earth in the little Tiannan star field. Billions of living beings are simply innumerable, but in such a long time, not a single one has been born. The strength of a divine nascent soul cultivator, in short, is the same as the child of a natural god. When cultivated to the peak, it is an existence that can split the heavens and split the earth. Even the children of immortals could not compare to him. Compared to the child of an immortal, the difference is like the difference between a mortal and an immortal. After Sage Anpo finished speaking, the entire earth fell silent. They were completely stunned. Even the worlds of the solar system were dead silent. In the end, when the news spread to the South Gate starfield, even the worlds in the deity land were shocked. He was the child of a god who could create a new world. The first divine-grade nascent soul stage cultivator in the history of the little Tiannan star field. Indeed, compared to Jiang Tian, who had a divine-grade nascent soul, 9th grade and sacred-grade soul formation cultivators were nothing. I told you, believe in Tai Chu and you will have eternal life. The big trickster Tang Xiaozi suddenly said with a smug face. In fact, even in the legendary Central Galaxy, the immortal sacred grounds and the peerless families that have produced void-returning saints rarely have a divine-grade nascent soul cultivator. It's too unreal. Even if a deity-grade nascent soul cultivator did have one, he would immediately be treated as a deity's seed and be supported by the power of sacred grounds and planet regions. That's because they have a high chance of becoming a deity. Saint Anpo looked at him approvingly and said with a smile, "Of course, there are also people who say that such a genius will definitely dominate the galaxy in the future, becoming a natural overlord and ruler of the star field. If so, why don't the other forces take the opportunity to kill him?" Right. Zhao Qianru finally reacted. The Star Ocean is a fierce battle between civilizations. Of course, they have to kill him in the cradle while he's still weak. Some people hate him, but even more grand cultivators value him. Sage Anpo said. Once such a deity or deity's seed is born, the Star Ocean will be shaken and many people will support him. It's best to take him in as a disciple. Even if he can't be a disciple, he should still call him brother and support him. If 30% of the people hate him, 70% of the people who support him. Think about it, the people who hate him wouldn't dare to do anything. He frowned and looked confused. And, in fact, once such a genius is born, the entire universe will be affected. More often than not, They could even draw upon the karmic luck of an entire star or star region, becoming an existence similar to the sun of karmic luck or the sun of heaven. With an invisible force, he or she will be undefeatable if he or she is lucky. That's why a deity infant and a divine infant are so precious. We also respect and admire him or her. Speaking of this, he was a bit confused himself. Deity grade and divine grade nascent souls did exist, but no one could explain what was going on. However, Jiang Tian, who had been listening to the interview from afar, understood. The so-called providence was an invisible hand from the deity realm in 9 heavens that could affect other people's fate. It was simple. The supreme grand cultivators in 9 heavens were also paying attention to the human world and the cultivation world. In the remote and desolate abandoned star field like the Milky Way, the immortal emperor would visit it every few thousand years or even hundreds of years, let alone the prosperous immortal holy lands in the central galaxy. Once a deity grade or divine grade nascent soul was born there, the grand cultivators of the deity realm would keep an eye on it and give it a suitable amount of training to improve its power and refine its mind, but they would also suddenly save it when it was in danger. However, the grand cultivators of the deity realm were elusive. Even if they went to the mortal world or intervened, it was usually done secretly. Even Sage Anpo, who lived in the remote Milky Way, had only sensed a trace of the energy of the grand cultivators in 9 heavens in the past tens of thousands of years, so he didn't talk about it in detail. The deities in 9 heavens, their providence, and the opportunity to become a deity were all secrets of the star ocean. Only the top cultivators in the central galaxy knew about them, let alone in the Milky Way. Normal soul formation cultivators barely knew about them. Suddenly, Zhao Qianqian shouted, "Look, the mist around the Taichu pavilion of the Tianqing school is gone. All the star ocean almighties have also been invited. I'm afraid the entire ceremony is about to begin." Suddenly, Zhao Qianru shouted excitedly. "Dong!" Then, a loud sound like a bell was heard. The mist around the Taichu pavilion, which was tens of thousands of meters above the arena of the Tianqing school, suddenly disappeared. Treasure light shone resplendently, tens of thousands of rays of auspicious splendor, and clouds rose into the air. Many disciples of the Tianqing school and officials of the new heavenly courts went down the stairs and led the guests from other planets to the platform. Those who could climb the stairs were at least soul formation cultivators, or representatives of a planet or planet region. The Divine Lord coronation ceremony had officially begun. Meanwhile, deep in the universe, which was countless light years away from the little south heaven, they were already at the edge of the Milky Way. She's still here and she even has a cultivation level. My hundreds of thousands of years of planning were worth it. Now, I can finally answer to her. An old man in an old azure robe, surrounded by surging deity spirit chi like a bright nebula and surrounded by countless grand Taoists stood in the sky. He was extremely deep, ancient and vast, as if there were stars around him. He looked in the direction of the Milky Way and Earth. His eyes were shining like stars, as if they could see through the 3 realms and the 9 levels of hell. There was nothing he couldn't see and nothing he couldn't investigate. He looked down at the vast galaxy as if he were looking at the lines on his palm. He was able to travel 1,000 light years away with a glance and saw Zhao Xueqing, who was smiling with Jiang Tian in the Taichu pavilion. Crack! At the next moment, he took a step forward lightly and instantly traversed a distance of 100 light years and thousands upon thousands of vast galaxies. He traversed galaxies as though they were small streams, and he plundered stars as though they were mud balls and pebbles. He directly arrived in the sky above the Big Dipper star region. If Saint Anpo or Qin Pu saw this power, they would have wet their pants immediately. The distance that half-saints like them couldn't travel in their entire lives had been crossed by that old man with a single step. And if Jiang Tian saw that old man, he would probably say with complicated emotions, "Master, I'm sorry." Teacher. Undying Emperor, long time no see. Chapter 1802. The situation has changed. The spirit chi on Earth has recovered and the Baidu sect has attacked Earth. Has the news about the opportunity of immortal ascension in the graveyard of deities and demons been leaked? The immortal emperor retracted his deep gaze and looked down at the Big Dipper star field below. In an instant, the rise and fall of nations, wars, peace, killings, love and hatred, life and death, countless scenes and thoughts of countless living beings in the vast world below could be seen in one glance. In a blink, he realized that the Beta sect's attack on Earth and the history of tens of thousands of years had entered his mind. A cold glint flashed across his eyes, like a meteor streaking across the deep sky. He said in a low voice, "We have to get rid of the culprit and all the people who know about it." In the Beta galaxy, in the Kaiyang planet region, there was a deserted planet called Arctic, which was dozens of times larger than Earth before the spirit Chi had recovered. An ice dragon that was 1,000 miles tall was lying in the vast ocean. It looked in the direction of Earth and sneered. The grand cultivators of the central galaxy are really ruthless. They claim to be righteous, but they're despicable and shameless. In the ancient times, they led the Annihilators to invade the deity ground and destroyed the grand cultivators who had a chance to become saints. They forced Emperor Sheng, Emperor Shi, Emperor Ao, and the others to build the deity trap array and cut off our tentacles several times, turning the Tiannan planet region and the entire Milky Way into a land of extinction. The ancient deity ground, the South Gate planet region and the Ophiuchus planet region were even more miserable. They became graveyards of the deities and demons and their cultivation declined. Billions of creatures were suppressed, so they became abandoned planet regions that no one cared about, making it easier for them to set up their deity ascension plan. The ice dragon said softly. Between its mouth and nose, it shot out a white wave of cold air that was hundreds of miles long, instantly freezing the surrounding sea into a glacier. At the moment, thousands of miles around it had been covered by ice and snow. A cold wave that was even more terrifying than the gales in the universe was surging. Even nascent soul cultivators would be frozen to death if they went 10,000 miles around it. Not even soul formation grand cultivators would be able to move forward 1,000 miles. As a matter of fact, the Arctic star was originally a great cultivation planet full of vitality. However, after it became the habitat of the ice hornless dragon, it was affected by the cold air and became a dead planet covered in ice and snow in just a few years. With the mastermind controlling all of this, he thought that his plan was flawless. However, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. No matter how deep and far their plans are, they will still be discovered. The immortal ascension opportunity that they created for us is the pavilion closest to the water and the pavilion closest to the moonlight, benefiting us. As the ice dragon spoke, it gently stirred its tail. In an instant, the entire planet shook, stirring up gales and waves of ice and snow. If such an expert were to descend on Earth, even if Earth's laws were strengthened, it would still cause tsunamis as high as 100,000 feet. Frigid air currents that reached several dozen degrees below zero would sweep across half of Earth. Annihilating a country or city would be a piece of cake. Ancestor, Qin Pu, and the others have already perished. The exiled deity hall, the Feiyang sect and the Wuji sect have suffered heavy losses. I'm afraid that we won't be able to attack again in a short time. Next to the ancestral patriarch, 100-mile hornless dragon rose to the sky and spoke in human language. "Hm. Han Fei, we've been sleeping for too long to wait for the immortal ascension opportunity. Since Kong Te-Chu has activated it ahead of time, we can't just sit back and watch an ant like him reap what we sow." The ancestral hornless dragon's face was filled with anger. It grunted and slapped with its dragon claw. With a clank, the surface of the planet was surging with waves and the Earth shook violently. A crater with a radius of tens of thousands of miles collapsed. The seawater and glaciers were swept away by the power of the dragon claw, revealing the trenches and ridges at the bottom of the sea. The ancestral hornless dragon said coldly. The South Gate, the Ophiuchus, the Fomalhaut galaxy, and even the two stars in the Big Dipper are buried with the bodies of ancient deities and fiends. The spirit chi of the stars and the spirit chi of the deities and fiends have been filtered by the galaxy array and infused into Earth. The immortal ascension opportunity on Earth wasn't created by just Earth. Of course, we're part of it. However, that planet is restricted by the grand sages and I can't go in. His demonic vertical pupils flickered with cold light, incomparably deep and resentful. However, that planet is locked by an array and we can't go in. But since Kang Tae-chu claimed to have formed a divine-grade nascent soul, he'll feel the restriction of the solar system and the entire Tiannan planet region. He can't make ends meet. One day, he'll come out and spy on the star ocean. Then, it'll be time for us to take revenge. By then, I'll kill him. The immortal ascension opportunity still belongs to the Beihan sect. We didn't do anything during this time just to make him lower his guard. We're not afraid of him. Ancestral Patriarch, I'll keep an eye on Kang Tae-chu and Earth. Once Kang Tae-chu flies out of the range of the galaxy array, I'll kill him immediately. Han Fei chuckled. If someone were to witness this scene, they would probably be shocked and their eyeballs would pop out. The Beihan sect was known as the divine sect of the human race and was known for suppressing monsters. Tens of thousands of years ago, they had fought a fierce battle with the Beidu monsters. However, no one would have thought that the founder of the sect was actually an ice dragon, a genuine great demon of the ancient times. However, most of their descendants had intermarried with humans, and the ice dragon's bloodline had become thinner with each passing day. The only clue that could be found was the cultivation method that the ice dragon specialized in. Han Ju, you little worm who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. How dare you covet the arrangement of the grand cultivators in heaven? Then, an authoritative voice came from the depth of space. In the void, the figure of the immortal emperor flashed. He seemed to be taller than a star, filling up heaven and earth and reaching the limit of one's vision. As his voice came, sound waves shook the world, destroying the laws and the grand Tao. The sun and the moon were upside down and the world was chaotic. In an instant, the entire Big Dipper star region trembled violently. The planets quaked, mountains collapsed, and the earth cracked. All sorts of natural disasters erupted in an instant. Billions of living beings trembled in unease. Some were even turned into dust on the spot. On the ground, blood flowed like rivers, and corpses piled up like mountains. In the end, even the 7 stars, which were several times larger than the sun, deviated from their gravitational orbits like marbles that had been moved by the hands of gods. Even golden core cultivators, nascent soul cultivators and soul formation cultivators couldn't withstand such power, let alone ordinary people. The immortal monarch, a giant among the deities of the 9 heavens, was enraged. With a single word, he destroyed dozens of planets with life. The starry sky grand arrays and sect guarding grand arrays, which were as huge as mountains, collapsed like paper. The cultivators were turned into a bloody mist and meat paste before they could even let out a scream. They did not even know how they died. Their Dharma laws and grand Daos collapsed and turned into rays of light. They were dazzling, but they didn't return to the world. Instead, they flowed into the grand Daos around the immortal monarch like rivers flowing into the sea. However, those grand Daos were only slightly condensed, like streams flowing into the sea. It was unremarkable. Only God knew how many living stars the immortal emperor had destroyed and devoured in the mortal world to condense such a powerful cultivation. Chapter 1803. Oh no! A real giant from the star ocean is here. Heaven is going to destroy the Big Dipper sect. Run! On a cultivation planet, dozens of surviving semi-god realm warriors were terrified when they saw the immortal monarch's body that was as bright as a star. They screamed and flew into the sky, trying to win a slim chance of survival. However, they couldn't move an inch under the pressure of the deity in heaven. Even if they could fly 100,000 miles, they were like ants flapping their wings in front of the undying monarch, who was infinitely vast and capable of supporting the sky. The distance they could fly was negligible, and they couldn't get rid of the restraint of the Great Tao at all. Under the suppression of the Great Tao that suddenly increased by 10 or even 100 times, those divinity transformation cultivators and some half-saints who were even more powerful than Qin Pu, who had lived for hundreds of thousands of years and could be called living fossils, were directly shattered in the world. Even the sacred weapons and Tao artifacts that they used to protect their sects were reduced to liquid and ashes. Senior, please spare my life. I was wrong. From now on, I'll never covet Earth again. I can even help you protect this world. Han Ke, ancestral patriarch of the ice dragons, was trembling under the pressure of the undying monarch. He curled up on the cold planet like an obedient worm and kowtowed to beg for mercy. Although he was arrogant, it depended on who he was dealing with. He wasn't afraid even when facing Jiang Tian, who was a divine-grade nascent soul cultivator. After all, although Jiang Tian had a bright future and his power was limitless, his level was still low and he was still weak. With Han Ke's strength as an ordinary return to Void Stage Saint, he would have no problem dominating the Big Dipper star zone or even the Little Tiannan star zone. However, he would be nothing in the central galaxy, where there were even more powerful giants, great sages, ancient sages, Tao reunion perfected immortals, and even tribulation-passing cultivators. However, he was facing a real deity in heaven right then. Any ordinary deity would be invincible in this universe once they went to the mortal world. Besides, the undying monarch was one of the giants in the deity realm. They were not on the same level at all. The difference between ancestral patriarch of the ice dragons and the undying monarch was like the difference between an ant and a human. But what was the use of begging? In the eyes of an existence like the immortal emperor, he was just an ant. It was difficult for him to cause the slightest ripple in his heart. The immortal emperor used the sea of stars as his bathtub and the stars as his pillow. He traveled through the sea of stars as if he were walking on flat ground. Crossing star regions was like a trickling stream, and the civilization with a history of millions of years was like a fleeting cloud. He had a heart of stone and was emotionless like the great Tao. After all, he had already glimpsed the truth of the heavenly Tao, and what he pursued was the secret of eternal existence. Too late. The undying emperor made his move expressionlessly. This was his first real attack. With just a flick of his finger. Clang! The entire frigid planet exploded in space like a smashed watermelon. Pieces of vast continents and glaciers flew out of the gravitational field and scattered in space like meteors. Blood gushed into the sky and broken bones flew everywhere. Han Ke was instantly shattered into countless pieces. Under the suppression of this kind of deity might, even the deity entrusted to the void collapsed in an instant. Then, because of the chaotic whole, the whole planet collapsed again. The fragments of the continents that had just flown out were sucked into it and torn into countless pieces. In the end, it turned into chaos. As for Han Fei, who was a half-saint, he was even more vulnerable. As soon as he flicked his finger, when only 1% of the heavenly might descended, he was turned into a bloody pulp. Down below. In the distance, stars were shaking. Countless figures were running around, kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy. They were wailing, and dragging their children with them. This was a tragedy in the human world. It was the end of the world. The immortal emperor turned around and came to the center of the Mizar star region. Without saying a word, he threw out a palm. Clang! The vast Mizar star exploded in the sky like fireworks under the giant palm. In the earth-shattering sound, fiery light that was hundreds of millions of kilometers long flowed past him and turned into giant waves of energy that swept in all directions, instantly drowning dozens of planets around him. All living beings wailed and the star region trembled. At this moment, the Mizar star turned into a sea of flames that expanded by tens of thousands of times. It swept across the entire Mizar star field, and the incomparably high temperature burned the mountains and boiled the seas. The planets instantly turned into translucent fireballs, as if they were made of flowing magma. A red liquid tail that was millions of miles long was dragged out in the air. This was a world-destroying disaster. This was the power of a high-tier civilization, and all living beings, regardless of whether they were mortals, plants, beasts, cultivators, mighty figures, or even returned to void stage saints, had no chance of escaping from this power. The freezing North sect, the boundless sect, the snow god palace and other sects were all destroyed. In just 10 minutes, the civilization of the Mizar star region, which had a history of millions of years, was annihilated. The number of creatures that died was in the billions. And this was only the first note of the prelude to the great movement. The immortal emperor was still not done. He and the giants behind him had painstakingly set up this ancient plan. How could it be destroyed by a few ants? Then, he took the 9 steps and attacked 6 times in a row. In the depths of the universe, planets exploded one after another, flickering with the light of destruction. Mizar, Alkaid, Tianshu, Tianxian, Tianji, Tianquan, Yuheng. The immortal emperor attacked 6 times. 6 planets were annihilated. Every note was the last sound of a planet. Every piece of music was the collective wail of countless behemoths. In the music, the occasional bass note was the annihilation of a star system. The continuous string note was the strange sound of the Dyson structure being plucked. The destruction of this star region and billions of creatures formed the prelude to the sound of nature in Hongmeng. At that moment, the Big Dipper star region turned into a chaotic sea of fire. The flames of the 7 planets were like bright lamps in the deep sea of the universe. They were about to run out of oil and were trying their best to emit their last energy, their last light and heat, announcing to the universe that their civilization had once existed. It was also announcing their passing and annihilation at this moment. At this time, the flames of the planets had not completely engulfed them. There were still some space fortresses and majestic cities flying out of the sky, looking for a place to stay. But the immortal emperor was too lazy to look. He shook his sleeves and used the power of the Great Path to instantly seal the entire star region. Then, he flew toward the depths of the little Tiannan star region, in the direction of the solar system. And Earth was still unaware of all this. If a radio telescope was used to capture the light and shadow, it would take another 100 years to observe the annihilation of the Big Dipper. Even if a grand cultivator in the star ocean fortunately observed it and sent a message through a super-large communication array, it would take at least a month to reach Earth at the earliest. On Earth, the Divine Lord coronation ceremony was still going on. As the Taichu Heavenly Pavilion opened, many guests and cultivators from other planets arrived. This extremely vast and unprecedented Divine Lord coronation ceremony had officially begun. This time, there were dozens of Divine Transformation Realm cultivators gathered at the Tianqing sect. There were even a few half-saints. Every soul formation cultivator controlled dozens or even hundreds of planets with life. They came to congratulate Jiang Tian and Earth on behalf of the living beings on those planets. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that thousands of planets had come. Chapter 1804. The 3 soul formation ancestral patriarchs of the ancient rock planet were all there, watching in shock. This is unprecedented. How many years has it been since the Tiannan planet region, the 3rd spiral arm of the Milky Way, had such a grand occasion? I've never seen so many soul formation and divine lords gathered together. This hasn't happened since ancestral patriarch Han Ke left the world. The 2nd divine lord, who was wearing an old robe, looked around and lamented. Ahem. I heard that 20 years ago, the deity-grade soul formation cultivator from the Yuheng planet region, by Jianjin, was taken away by the grand cultivators of the central galaxy. That's why there was such a grand occasion. The 3rd divine lord exclaimed. Then, his face suddenly became serious and he said worriedly, although the Alioth planet area is far away from the Alkaid planet area and the Mizar planet area, I heard that by Jianjin and the ancestral patriarch of the freezing north sect, Han Ke, had a close relationship. Do you think the Beihan sect will ask for help from Bai Jianjin? If he helps, Kang Te Chu. Shut up, 3rd divine lord. The words, weak, were still in his mouth when he was abruptly interrupted by the 1st ancestor with an aged face. The 1st ancestor was wearing a red robe and looked happy. His white hair was sparse, but his face, which was as hard as stone and iron, was extremely cold. He shouted angrily, he yelled, do you want to die? This is Kang Te Chu's base in the Taichu Heavenly Pavilion, the top of Tianqing School. However, you're reckless enough to mention Bai Jianjin from the Northern Dipper family and talk bad about Jiang Taichu. Do you want our ancient rock star to be wiped out by Jiang Taichu in one day? The 3rd ancestral patriarch was upset. He explained that he was only talking with his immortal will and others couldn't hear him. But he was also a bit shocked. Jiang Tian was unpredictable. He had killed 4 half-saints in a row as a nascent soul cultivator and the entire star ocean was shaking. Other people might not be able to hear him, but they might not be able to escape from Kang Teichu's immortal will. Thus, after saying a few words, he shut his mouth and did not say anything else. Let's not mention Bai Jianjun again. Even if he receives the news that we need help and wants to rush back, it will take decades. At least for this period of time, we will have to live under Kang Teichu's shadow. The first ancestor also reminded him earnestly. At this time, Jiang Tian really didn't have time to pay attention to their spiritual awareness sound transmissions. He was still thinking about Zhao Xueqing. Hubby, the Divine Lord's ceremony is for your coronation. What's going on with me walking to the front stage? Zhao Xueqing blushed. He, purely in terms of cultivation, you are the real divine sovereign of the divine transformation realm. I'm the one who doesn't live up to my name. Jiang Tian laughed. He gazed deeply into the sky. His already vast and sharp divine sense had already sensed an extremely powerful celestial core power aura that seemed to be able to overturn the world and split the heavens, and the earth was rapidly descending. He's here. At this moment, he took a deep look at Zhao Xueqing and said, let's cherish every moment we have together. The next moment, Jiang Tian shouted in his heart, God-slaying art. Jiang Tian's eyes dimmed for a while and then brightened again. When he looked at Zhao Xueqing's clone again, his eyes seemed to have a few more tenderness. This was a kind of divine sense art that went against the heavens. It could cut off a piece of memory. From now on, Jiang Tian's memory of Zhao Xueqing's original body was forever cut off and annihilated in the long river of time. It didn't exist in Jiang Tian's sea of consciousness and memory. Only an extremely deep subconscious existed. Unless the two of them met one day and triggered the subconscious, Jiang Tian wouldn't remember Zhao Xueqing's original body. The clone at this time was the original body in Jiang Tian's memory. This couldn't be helped. With the power of the immortal emperor, he could look down on the galaxy as if he was looking at the lines on his palm. His eyes could see through the 3 realms and the 9 underworlds. There was nothing he didn't know and nothing he didn't observe. As long as he met Jiang Tian face to face, the matter of him refining a clone of his original body would immediately be exposed. Jiang Tian would never be able to escape the control of the grand cultivators of the celestial world. He would be a pawn for the rest of his life. All right. I'll reluctantly agree. Zhao Xueqing's clone smiled and walked out hand in hand with Jiang Tian. In the main hall of the Taichu Heavenly Pavilion. The arrival of Jiang Tian and Zhao Xueqing instantly caused the climax of the entire ceremony. Tens of thousands of salutes were fired in every country and region. The loud sound shook the entire world. Thousands of fighter jets and space battleships flew across the sky and hung banners with congratulatory messages. Around the world, Koalian warships exploded and the nuclear arrays in outer space exploded. Thunder energy, fire and light waves were like giant fireworks covering the entire world, which the cultivators in the South Gate planet region could see with their naked eyes. Nuclear weapons as firecrackers. Koalian as fireworks. Only for the Divine Lord of the Taichu sect. At this moment, billions of creatures on Earth, the South Gate planet region and even further away in the Ophiuchus constellation and the Fomalhaut planet region witnessed this scene through large communication Dharma artifacts and looked at the overlord of the star ocean who was about to be conferred the title of Divine Lord. Ah! 10 years have passed and he's been through so many fierce battles. Why is he still as young as before? His eyes are still so clear, as if he'll always be that young man. At the audience table, Tang Guozhu's emotions fluctuated and tears came out of his eyes. Jiang Tian wore a black divine robe and had a star crown on his head. His face was sparkling like jade, and he was as handsome as a god. His bearing was extremely dignified. Tang Hongtu, Tang Weimin, Yi Gufeng, Yi Ziwei, Shen Lu and his wife, Lu Yiting and the others who had been invited to the ceremony were all emotional. Only Shen Lu joked, a man is still a young man until he dies. Master's wife, you're still so beautiful. Tang Linglong didn't know why, but she remembered the scene 11 years ago when she became Qin Fan's disciple. She felt sad, happy, and sad, and tears also rolled down her cheeks. That day, Jiang Tian became the supreme cultivator of Jiang Bei and was called Master Kong. Zhao Xueqing was also like today. She held Jiang Tian's hand and stood with her chest out. Her actions were elegant, and her eyes were bright and dazzling. She was like a high and mighty empress, accepting the kowtows of everyone from the Tang family and looking down at everyone. However, in the short span of 11 years, the world had changed. Jiang Tian had already walked out from the small eastern sea and Jiang Bei, ascending into the heavens, becoming the master of 2 great star systems. His name shook the large and small heavenly south starfield, supreme and unsurpassed. However, Zhao Xueqing was still the only one who accompanied him. The two of them were as firm as a rock, which made people feel envious. This is a divine lord. Feeling Jiang Tian's peerless power, Iris, Zhao Qianru, Li Jinju, Li Huiyan, and Han Qingli were all staring at Jiang Tian with complicated emotions. Among these girls, many of them had once developed subtle feelings for Jiang Tian. When they first met Jiang Tian was a martial arts expert and a master of sorcery. But in the end, they still developed a desire to possess him. But now, those feelings were completely severed. He was too far away. Who would have thought that Jiang Tian would one day rule the entire Tiannan planet region, become a divine lord and become the top overlord under the universe? They were no longer on the same level. Jiang Tian was a real god, the master of the world. The other people in the audience also felt Jiang Tian's power. They were dumbfounded and in awe. In comparison, the grand cultivators from the Star Ocean in the main hall of the Taichu Pavilion were not only stunned, but also terrified. In their eyes, Jiang Tian's power was like a mountain and an ocean. He was filled with a unique sacred energy, as if he had become one with the entire world. It was as if he were a deity in heaven, the dominator of the universe. Does being a divine lord and being worshipped by everyone really get the support of the world? Just like how deities absorbed the power of faith. Even Saint Anpo, who was narrating the ceremony, was stunned. After only a few days, Jiang Tian's energy had become much more profound than before. No matter how powerful the soul formation cultivators were, they couldn't figure it out. And yet, they didn't know that Jiang Tian had been using the art of deceiving the heavens to hide his energy when he met them. If he really used it, they wouldn't even dare to talk to Jiang Tian as an equal. Chapter 1805. The Divine Lord has been born. The ceremony has officially begun. Mrs. Shisha, the ancestral patriarch who had come all the way from the Ophiuchus constellation, was in charge of hosting the ceremony. Then, many disciples of the Tianqing school went up and bowed. Then, the heroes of the new heavenly courts followed. In the end, even the grand cultivators from the Star Ocean from other planets knelt. How many years has it been? 100,000 years have passed since the Shing Emperor, Eo Emperor, and the other ancient sages died and we went to the South Gate planet region. Even the deity ground and earth have never enjoyed such glory. Finally, the divine lord of the Star Ocean is born. The humiliation of being enslaved, suppressed, and sealed for 10,000 years, will be washed away today. Yun Zhongzi, Niu Duotian, the Green Dragon King and Tu Fei were so excited that tears ran down their cheeks. The eyes of Bai Muxue, Ao Jiao, Long Xingnan, Qi Liqui, and the other ladies had also turned red. Meanwhile, Fu Heishui scanned his surroundings with a wry expression. Big brother, I've looked around. None of the tribes that have come to pay their respects have the divine bat bloodline. Brother. This is the 3rd time I've checked. None of them. Fu Huiren also looked sad. Are we going to be alone for the rest of our lives? The two of them looked at each other and burst into tears. Soul formation grand cultivators of the new heavenly courts, please stand on my right. Jiang Tian smiled and extended his right hand, asking Yun Zhongzi and the others to stand on the same level as him and accept the ceremony. The cultivators from other planets in the hall were shocked, but they couldn't say anything. That was the glory they deserved. They had followed Jiang Tian to the ruins of deity and gone through countless difficulties. Besides, they had indeed become soul formation cultivators and could be called divine lords. Therefore, under the gazes of the crowd, Yun Zhongzi, Niu Duotian, Tu Fei, and the other bandits tidied up their clothes. Fu Heishui and Fu Heishui wiped their tears and walked onto the high platform excitedly. Together with Jiang Tian and his wife, they accepted the worship of the crowd. Jiang Tian alone was able to defeat the Northern Dipper heavenly talents and kill 4 half-saints in a row, not to mention that he had the support of many soul formation stage cultivators in the new heavenly court. Especially when Jiang Tian was still so young. He was only in his 30s. If he could reach the soul formation level, he would be able to live for another 100,000 years. Many extraterrestrial mighty figures came to a realization. They, their sons, grandsons, and even their descendants would have to live under the rule of Jiang Tian, the Tianqing school, and the new heavenly court for countless years to come. Don't mess with him, don't mess with him. He didn't expect the ancient heavenly court to have so many semi-god realm warriors. There are 7 or 8 of them. Moreover, they all have demonic beast bloodlines, and they are even very close to divine beasts. Their deities are extremely vast, and they can trigger the great Tao of natural laws. I didn't expect this small deity ground to be a place of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. The divine lords of the Ophiuchus constellation, the Fomalhaut planet region and the ancient rock planet glanced at the soul formation grand cultivators of the new heavenly courts and exclaimed with fear in their eyes. Some nascent soul cultivators were even trembling in fear. At the last moment, when he was about to be crowned as a divine lord, ancestral patriarch Shisha also glanced at the crowd according to the ceremony in the Star Ocean and asked with a smile, "Does anyone have any objections to cultivator Tai Chu being crowned as a divine lord?" She had thought it was just a matter of procedure. Yun Zhongzi, Niu Duotian and the 100 soul formation cultivators in the hall all thought so. After all, Jiang Tian's name had shaken the entire Starry Ocean. His influence had already been established, and his might had suppressed the major galaxies. Who would be so blind as to court death and provoke Jiang Tian? Everyone went silent. However. Then. Kang Te-chu, your wife is quite talented. This old man wants to take her away. A lazy and casual voice sounded from the entrance of the hall, causing everyone to be shocked. Who is he? Is he crazy? Today is the Divine Lord of the Tai Chu Divine Lord's Divine Lord Coronation Hall, but he wants to take the Divine Lord's wife away. Does he want to die? A cultivator mumbled with a sneer. He's not only provoking Tai Chu Divine Lord, he's also provoking everyone here. Everyone looked up angrily and saw a middle-aged man in an azure outfit approaching with his hands behind his back. That man had gray hair and only a few wrinkles on his handsome face. He seemed to be in his early 40s. However, his eyes were incomparably old. They carried the boundless vicissitudes of time and contained boundless wisdom and philosophy. He simply stood there without using any magic, but he floated in the air. It was as if he was supposed to be standing in the sky. This was the natural order of things. Zhao Xueqing's clone looked at Jiang Tian in confusion and said with her immortal will, "Is he the immortal emperor?" Jiang Tian looked calm. He patted her hand and said, "It's okay." The immortal emperor stared at Zhao Xueqing with greed in his eyes. He clapped his hands and exclaimed, "Good, good, good. You formed the deity body of the pure Phoenix Lady. You're already a deity-grade soul formation cultivator. Who is he? How dare he look at the wife of Tai Chu Divine Lord? Do he want to die?" Xingning slammed the table and said angrily. Ancestral Patriarch Shisha immediately stopped her and said, "He's at least a soul formation cultivator or even higher. Don't be rash. Higher than a soul formation cultivator? Who is he?" Xingning felt a chill and was confused. He knew almost all the soul formation ancestral patriarchs in the Tiannan planet region. Even though he hadn't seen them in person, he had seen their portraits and descriptions in the records of his sect. But it was the first time he had seen this middle-aged man in an azure outfit. Jiang Tian glanced at everyone and said with his immortal will, "This man is powerful. Don't act rashly." Great Ancestor Shisha stepped forward and bowed. She was not arrogant at all and was very humble. "May I know Senior's name and which sect you are from? Are you also here to attend the ceremony of Tai Chu Divine Emperor?" "I'm the host of this grand hall, Shisha from Ophiuchus constellation. Please take a seat." The immortal monarch didn't say a word. He just looked at Zhao Xueqing, as if he were admiring the best art in the world. "Divine Lord Ceremony?" The immortal emperor's lightning-like eyes fell on Jiang Tian, revealing a hint of playfulness as he sighed. "It's strange. He's a divine body, divine soul, and divine law, but he's so natural, as if he's the child of an immortal. I'm amazed. He's only a nascent soul cultivator. In terms of fighting capability, I'm afraid he can easily escape from the ice hornless worm. At least, he has the ability to protect his life." Some nascent soul cultivators and normal soul formation cultivators didn't know what was going on. But ancestral patriarchs like Shisha were startled after hearing that. This man called the ancestral patriarch of the Beihan sect, the ice dragon ancestral patriarch of the Kaiyang galaxy and the entire Beidou star system, a small worm. But the third ancestral patriarch of the ancient rock planet didn't buy it. He flew out and yelled, "My friend, if you're here to attend the ceremony, please take a seat immediately. If you don't agree, draw a line. I'm not talented, but I'd like to see what you're capable of." Jiang Tian frowned when he saw this. He hurriedly said, "Senior, please be lenient." "Hm." Sure enough, the immortal emperor frowned slightly and snorted softly. With a loud bang, the third ancestral patriarch of the ancient rock planet, a peerless overlord who had been a soul formation cultivator for at least 30,000 years, exploded and turned into dust. "Third brother." The other two ancestral patriarchs of the ancient rock planet yelled. They were furious, but more than that, they were terrified. The immortal monarch didn't even move. He was suppressing and killing a god instantly. He was so powerful that they couldn't believe it. He killed a soul formation cultivator as if he were killing ants. How can there be such a powerful person in the world? I'm afraid that even 100 Kong Te Chu wouldn't be able to defeat him. Is he a giant in the central galaxy or a deity in heaven? Not only them, even Shisha and Saint Anpo were terrified. They couldn't help but think of something terrifying and they felt the power as heavy as a planet. Chapter 1806. The third ancestral patriarch of the ancient rock planet was also a veteran soul formation cultivator. He was not far from becoming a half-saint and was a terrifying existence that could intimidate an entire planet. However, he could not even withstand a flick of the finger in front of this mysterious person. This person's strength was unimaginable. The strength of these people was about the same as the third ancestral patriarch of the ancient rock planet. If they faced the immortal monarch head-on, they would die without a doubt. "Senior, you have a good eye for seeing my aptitude." Jiang Tian could only sigh softly. He narrowed his eyes and said calmly. "But, it shouldn't be. The cultivation method of the acquired divine body and divine infant is a secret of the nine heavens deity realm and even the divinity realm. You came from a remote planet. How can you control it? Could it be that she has awakened?" The immortal monarch was surprised. "Master, we meet again. You really don't recognize me?" Jiang Tian smiled faintly. "Master?" The immortal monarch trembled. After all, he was a giant of the nine heavens deity realm. When he was shocked, the great path around him roared as if the whole world was about to collapse. Jiang Tian smiled leisurely. "I am a reincarnated person. In my previous life, you were my master. I once ascended to the nine heavens deity realm and even swept through the divinity realm and reached the supreme divine realm of Hongmeng. This old man has seen far too many instances of possession. But I have never heard of such a thing as reversing time and reincarnating. The immortal monarch could not believe it. One had to know that this was the most heaven-defying thing in the world. Even the Daluo Dao ancestor could not do it. Even the immortal monarch had no clue at this moment. Let me see your divine sense memory. The immortal monarch pondered for a while. Suddenly, he raised his eyebrows and said, "Senior, since you want to see it, I will let you see it." Wouldn't that be too embarrassing for Kang Taechu? Jiang Tian's eyes turned cold like a gust of cold wind that froze the world. If Jiang Tian had met the immortal monarch in his previous life, he would not have been able to resist at all. However, as the reincarnation of the god of creation of Hongmeng, even the immortal emperor was not qualified to teach him a lesson. After all, Jiang Tian had already surpassed the giants of the celestial world and reached the god of creation stage in his past life. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was surprised and nervous. "Prepare for battle," Yun Zhongzi roared anxiously. Immediately, the cultivators of the new heavenly court and the heavenly clear sect were on high alert. Their killing intent and battle intent soared into the heavens. They naturally knew that the immortal emperor was very strong, but they were even more loyal to Jiang Tian. How could they sit by and watch their master be humiliated? That's right. In the world of cultivation, having one's soul searched and memories searched was a great humiliation. Moreover, it involved the secrets of Jiang Tian's past life. It was a matter of great importance. "Kang Taechu, your face is worthless." The immortal emperor narrowed his eyes, and a murderous light flashed in his eyes. He laughed, took a step forward, and waved his sleeve. A thunder dragon shining with the light of the great path flew out from the bottom of his sleeve. With a loud bang, it turned into a 10-foot long and shot toward Jiang Tian with a terrifying power that could destroy everything. At this time, the thunder dragon that the immortal emperor had released was not very big. It was even far inferior to the law attacks released by Han Ming and the other geniuses. However, everyone's expression changed drastically, and they felt a sense of suffocation. Everyone was keenly aware that the attack of the thunder dragon was far beyond a sage's level. It had reached a level that they could not imagine. The terrifying thunder was extremely condensed and almost tangible. It was completely condensed by the great path of the divine thunder of the 9 heavens, like a divine dragon. The immortal emperor did not pry into Jiang Tian's divine sense. Instead, he released a thunder technique, and it was his divine sense that shocked the celestial world. 9 heavens demon-destroying true thunder. "Senior, watch out!" Yun Zhongzi roared again with his divine sense. The new divine generals of the celestial court were so anxious that their eyes were about to crack, and they gritted their teeth. It was a very strange feeling. They were only 100 meters away from the immortal emperor, but this short distance seemed to stretch across the galaxy, and they could not break through. The space around him was completely frozen, like a fly in amber. He couldn't lift his feet, couldn't move his shoulders, and couldn't even move his fingers. The divine sense that the immortal emperor had released froze the space. It was even more powerful than Jiang Tian's sea calming ice god. They could only watch the 9 heavens demon-destroying true thunder strike toward Jiang Tian. In fact, this was also the difference between the giants of the celestial world and the human world. The mighty figures of the human world pursued the vastness and surging of cultivation methods. They wanted to be able to stand upright and pick the stars and the moon with their every move. On the other hand, the celestial world of the 9 heavens had already broken through this realm. They did not want to be vast and luxurious, but pure and condensed. A grain of sand could fill the sea of stars, and a blade of grass could cut the sun, the moon, and the stars. They could turn the world upside down as if a flower was a world, and a blade of grass was a Bodhi. If you really turn around, you should know how to restrain the 9 heavenly thunder. You can definitely protect yourself with your current level of cultivation. If you dare to lie to me, then die. After releasing the thunder art, the immortal emperor stood with his hands behind his back. His face was so calm that there was not a trace of emotion on his face. His eyes were deep and ancient, as if they were the eternal Tao of heaven and earth. Demon-destroying true thunder. Those thunderbolts didn't come from this world, but from the deity realm in 9 heavens. They were extremely powerful and could kill a soul formation cultivator or severely injure a half-saint. Even a Tao reunion perfected immortal would have to be cautious when facing them. The disciples of the Hangyu celestial sect had been almost invincible in the central galaxy with this divine sense passed down by the immortal emperor. Countless enemies of the evil sects had been turned into ashes by this attack. Oh my god, this guy is too scary. Even the purple gold true dragon, a purebred divine beast, was trembling in fear. But this time, the black jade Kylan did not mock him for being a coward. Why? Because they realized that the true thunder had taken the shape of a dragon, not because of the immortal emperor, but because there was a true dragon's soul living in it. It was like the array spirit of a large array or the artifact spirit of a divine weapon. Its original body had been killed by the immortal emperor, its flesh and blood had been crushed, and its divine soul had been forcibly suppressed and refined into the divine sense's divine sense. Killing a divine beast, extracting its divine soul, forcibly refining and suppressing it, and then turning it into its own attack. What a terrifying method! It could be said that this true dragon's soul was more terrifying than an ordinary saint's, which was also the most terrifying part of the 9 heavens demon-destroying true thunder. The Hangyu celestial sect has many cultivation arts, which are as vast as the sea. They are all very knowledgeable and have the wonders of creation. With the strength of a soul formation cultivator, there are more than 10 cultivation arts that can restrain the 9 heavens true thunder. Jiang Tian's face was still calm. He stood there with his hands behind his back and didn't dodge. The terrifying true lightning dragon was right in front of him. All of a sudden, a huge black hole split open. Starlight filled the surroundings, forming a spirit formation gate. Amidst the true lightning dragon's earth-shattering roar, the spirit formation gate swallowed up the dragon's head in an instant, leaving only the dragon's body behind. Hangyu celestial sect, great chaos art. Jiang Tian's eyes were cold as he shouted. Huh! The immortal emperor's face changed. He was already somewhat convinced that Jiang Tian had reincarnated and reversed time. Chapter 1807. The Hangyu celestial sect was focused on the 2 most powerful great Daos, the supreme secrets of time and space. The great chaos art was one of the Hangyu celestial sect's secrets about space. It was a void return cultivation art that could surpass reality with the void. No matter how powerful the Dharma divine power was, even if it could destroy the world, the Hangyu celestial sect only needed to create a universe chaos hole to connect different dimensions and transfer the attack to another dimension. Even if that world collapsed, it would have nothing to do with the Hangyu celestial sect. He was also safe and sound, without a single injury. In fact, the eternal exile Jiang Tian used when he fought with Zeus for the deity blood arrow orchid in the Sidoni longevity tribe was a simplified version of the great chaos art. At that time, Jiang Tian was only at the peak of qi refinement. Even if it was just a simplified version, he would still be exhausted and spit out blood. But now, he was 10,000 times stronger than before. Even if he used the real universe chaos hole, it was still as easy as pie. But the immortal emperor knew. Even in the central galaxy and the Hangyu celestial sect, this set of divine powers was a top-notch technique that was not passed down to outsiders. Only the 6 personal disciples had a grasp of it. It was impossible for it to be passed down to a remote planet like the Milky Way. The immortal emperor was about to take back the thunder dragon. Master, if you don't believe me, why don't you let me use it to practice? Unexpectedly, Jiang Tian wasn't done yet. He shouted and attacked for the first time. He pressed his hand down as if it was light. 5 elements immortal sect, 5 elements furnace. The universe chaos hole disappeared. As Jiang Tian pressed his hand down, the 5 elements divine laws of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth vibrated and swept out. They formed an ancient cauldron that was more than 10 meters tall. This cauldron had gungjin as its barrier, green wood as its firewood, and true fire as it burned, turning the ashes into soil. The surrounding clouds were steaming and rosy, and the forces of yin, yang, and 5 elements were transforming each other. A few types of divine laws formed a subtle cycle that grew and multiplied endlessly, as if it was a world of flames that could smelt all things. As soon as the cauldron appeared, it caught the true thunder dragon as if it was trying to catch the moon in the water. Bang! Bang! Muffled sounds of struggles and collisions could be heard. The 9 heavens' true lightning was originally extremely yang, firm, indestructible, ferocious, and violent. However, under the burning of the grand Tao furnace of the 5 elements, it still shattered miserably, and it blasted the barrier to the point it trembled and seemed as if it was about to explode. However, it stabilized in the end. Interesting. The immortal emperor narrowed his eyes slightly, his immortal light flickering. In fact, the starry sky great chaotic whole art still had some power left. Not only had Jiang Tian mastered the techniques of the Han Yu immortal sect, but he had also mastered the ultimate techniques of the 5 elements immortal sect. Although he had forcefully simulated it, that was because he had not yet grasped the great Tao. However, in terms of the principles of the cultivation method, he was completely at a loss. If Jiang Tian had really been his disciple in his past life, it would mean that he had not only mastered the Han Yu immortal sect's ultimate technique, but he had also dabbled in the techniques of other immortal sects. At this time, a large part of the true thunder dragon had been burned away, leaving only its tail that was constantly slapping the outer wall of the cauldron, making loud rumbling noises. Its hind claws grabbed the edge of the cauldron, making ear-piercing clanging sounds. Sparks flew everywhere, as if it was trying to break free. Its terrifying vitality, which was almost indestructible, also shocked everyone. Slaying immortal sect, heaven interception and god trapping. Jiang Tian's expression did not change. He made a second move, his right hand forming a claw, from top to bottom, and grabbed down. Clang! The 5 elements' great Tao furnace shrank and returned to nothingness. The latter half of the true thunder dragon's tail was about to fly into the air. It was as if an invisible giant net of laws had been cast down. Streaks of divine laws, which were full of terrifying murderous intent, seemed to be able to destroy Buddhas, slay demons, trap true gods, and cut across all things in the world, intertwined with each other and directly bound the true thunder dragon's tail tightly, and it kept shrinking. Suddenly, a clanging sound of friction rang out. Blood-containing thunder splashed, scales fell off, and the thunder dragon's bones broke inch by inch. In the end, it exploded with a bang like a piece of paper. At this point, the demon-slaying true thunder dragon had been completely crushed by Jiang Tian. The secret arts of the 3 celestial sects, the most powerful divine powers in the universe, were used one after another by Jiang Tian. The whole place was silent. Everyone was dumbfounded. Even ancestral patriarch Shi Sha and Saint Anpo looked as if it was the first time they had seen Jiang Tian. They had already guessed that the immortal monarch definitely had an extraordinary background. With their means, they did not even have the eyesight and knowledge to understand the true thunder of the deity realm of the immortal world, let alone dodge or break it. In a word, if they faced the true thunder of the 9th heaven, there was no other way but to die. However, such a terrifying divine thunder of the 9th heaven was still destroyed by Jiang Tian in 3 fancy ways. This feeling was like seeing a 3-year-old child on Earth solve Goldbach's conjecture with 3 different ideas. It was unbelievable, as if it was a fantasy story. There shouldn't be such a person in the world. The immortal monarch's face, which had been as calm as an ancient well, became serious for the first time. He moved his throat and murmured vaguely. 10,000 Tao immortal sect, 10,000 Tao unification. Jiang Tian's eyes were full of confidence and even a trace of contempt. He raised his hands and gently closed them, as if he was hugging the void. Suddenly, a singularity seemed to form between his fingers and palms. An absolute negative vacuum. The scattered fragments of the true thunder great path in the air flew into it like bright meteors. Endless energy, at the extreme, was compressed into a point that seemed to be extremely nothingness, but also extremely heavy. At this point, yin and yang were indistinguishable. All things returned to the origin, the initial singularity. The small singularity contained a terrible explosive power, as if it could instantly turn into chaos, create all things, and blow up the entire Milky Way. In fact, Jiang Tian's idea of creating the chaotic divine body was based on the 10,000 Tao unification of the 10,000 Tao immortal sect and all the cultivation theories of the 9 major celestial sects. Returning to the origin was to absorb and devour, while chaos was to release and expand. Between tension and relaxation, it was like a simulation of the Big Bang, forming an attack, showing the power of the primordial demon god when he created the world. Teacher, thank you for meeting me again. Give me a big gift. Jiang Tian chuckled. He swallowed the true thunder of the 9th heaven and integrated it into the divine nascent soul. Suddenly, the thunder divine law seemed to be several times more condensed than before. It was dazzling and blazing, far more than the other divine laws. It seemed to be showing signs of perfection. Yes. Many of the most powerful cultivation methods of the celestial sects have been mastered through a comprehensive study. It's pure and natural, and it's unique. It's shining with 10 times or 100 times the combat power of a single cultivation method. Wonderful, wonderful. The immortal emperor praised, but a mischievous smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He said softly, "That's right." He whispered, "But it's not over yet." It's not over yet. Everyone was shocked and couldn't believe it. The true thunder of the 9th heaven had been destroyed and swallowed by Jiang Tian. Why was it not over yet? And look at his smug expression. It seemed that the next attack was the most terrifying.